Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trek through Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We're on Volume 22, Chapter 9. And I have completed 9, 10, and Interlude. And I think that'll be pretty much the entire Mushoku Monday this time around. And I think the other two chapters are pretty much... I think the last chapter, I think it is like super beefy. So I think we pretty much have our last Mushoku Monday right there for Volume 22. And I think it'll all work out well. So we'll see as we get there as per usual. But thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys so much for dropping by. Your guys' support means so much to me. Thank you to everybody at Sports Channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships. Last week we had Sergio Donov with a 16-month membership. Thank you so much for long-time support. Gearless with another amazing super. Thank you so much, Gearless. I hope you're doing well. Thank you. It means so much to me. Noah with a 20, thank you so much. And a 18-month membership. Thank you, Noah. And Rolls Moist with a super. Thank you, Rolls Moist. It means so much to me for your ongoing support. You guys are so amazing. Thank you so much. But yeah, with that said, I got you guys so bad. I was all super negative Andrew last week going, my gosh, I hate so much. They skipped Magrudian Village. I knew that if I complained, I knew that if I threw a fit, Refugian of the past would see the future and see, God, yeah, that's right. I gotta put one in here. I totally forgot, but thank you, Andrew. You reminded me, and I was able to put that in here. But yes, I got my Magrudian Village moment, and it was a super good chapter, and easily... I think without a doubt, I think that's probably my favorite image throughout the entire series so far. I want to get a disc plate of it. I'm probably going to put it right here. I want a disc plate of that so freaking bad. I gotta get a hold of my friend. He's got the membership and the contacts. I gotta get that. I gotta get that printed. I already got it up-resed. I'm ready for it. It's just a beautiful image, but... Before we get into these coming chapters, I do want to go back to something. It was something that I forgot to talk about back when we had the last Geese chapter. I forgot to talk about it back then, and then last Mushoku Monday, as I was watching Mushoku Monday, it suddenly dawned on me, like it recalled back to me, oh crap, I didn't talk about that, and this right here kind of seems to confirm it. But way back there in Geese's chapter, he said that he grabbed a blade of demon sword lying rotting in the back of a storehouse of old junk in Osra Kingdom, and then a hilt from the burial ground of the King Dragon Realm. Then took them to the blacksmith who handled demon weapons and had them reforged. Back when I read that the first time, my immediate thought went to, I'm assuming this is probably something very important. Like, it's going to be an OP blade. But there was a side of me that was almost thinking, when we started talking about, him possibly recruiting Atof, and then, yes, obviously kind of bringing to mind all the possibilities that he could choose. And yes, Rudius has a lot of connections with Immortal Demon Kings. And so my thought immediately went to the idea of, what if this is something that can possibly harm them? And then with the last Mushoku Monday, we obviously had that conversation with Moore, where he's like, I don't know how you kill an Immortal Demon King. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, that's the obvious question. Like, even with Petagoose, freaking shoosh, freaking chops her in half and throws her off into the horizon. Like, that didn't kill her. Rudius, freaking just feeling her full of stone cannons. Bodigatti, blasting him. These people don't die. They're Immortal Demon Kings. How do you kill one? So the assumption there is obviously it's going to be some magical weapon, some magical item or something specially crafted that can possibly kill one. And so yes, it seems very odd to have this random demon sword being brought up right here. There's a possibility that is the thing that will possibly kill him. Yes, the thing that, obviously, or possibly was the one that, is this the same blade that killed her father? Question mark. But it seems pretty interesting that right here he brings up some special demon sword right before we get into talking about this Immortal Demon King that was killed. That's supposed to be immortal, that is apparently not immortal. So that was interesting. I also, when I went back there and looked at that, I do recall that I didn't talk about, yes, the fact that he got some special alcohol. That could be the contingency plan. He could be getting the alcohol right here from a shifty tribe in the Demon Continent, because that's going to be some special alcohol that she will like. And so he was going to bring that alcohol, and then the backup was going to be the blade. If you can't get her to join you, use the blade. That way he doesn't, join Rudius. Possibly right there. So very interesting stuff, but it could be anything, really, at this point. A demon... It is odd that it's called a demon sword. Not that it's called something else to kill a demon, but... it could be that it was crafted by demons in order to kill a demon, or that was made up of something special from a demon. who knows? But anyways, that's kind of reminding me there. So let's get into these chapters. We have chapter 9, Princess Rudius enters the fray. Princess Rudius. Mor took Rudius to a high place with a view of the arena. Edis, don't give up. Edis, I can't. Not this. They're too. Come on. I can't. Ow. In the arena, Edis was pinned down by 5 animals with long fur about the size of large dogs. Never mind. That wasn't correct. Edis was petting the creatures that were crowding around her. As she was looking over the moon with happiness, Roxy was trying to pull them off of her, but they were too big for her. She bounced right off of them and couldn't get close to Edis. Rudius had come to see Edis being a badass. Not whatever this was. I could see her just like, oh, yay. I do have to admit, and I totally facepalmed as I watched the last Mushoku Monday. Yes, at the very end there, I was like, man, I can't wait to see what Refugien does with Edis and Roxy fighting side by side, mage and swordsman. I was so pumped for the next 2. Rudius was even. He was like, Mor, I gotta go over there and watch Edis, see what she does. Rudius is like me. I was all pumped for watching that. Like, what do they do? And then sure enough, I open up this chapter. I'm like, we're skipping them. We're skipping. Well, we're getting part of one right here. Just Rudius joins in, but they talk a little bit about how they handled the previous fight, which is cool, but still, I was like a little bummed. I DM'd somebody like, yeah, so about that. Mor suddenly chuckled nearby. Your champions have been taken in by familiars of Arcantus of Flame. Familiars? Yes. Arcantus of Flame sends his familiars out to take the measures of opponents. They're quite devious, actually. They sniff out strength, but if they smell weakness, they attack and rip their opponents limb to limb. Oh no, what about Edis? She must smell so strong to them. She must smell so strong to them that they've become entirely tame. They're like, please don't kill me. That was bad. They were so big and fluffy. If they'd taken a liking to Edis, there's no hope. Arcantos chuckled, a little uncertain. Return to me, my familiars. She is beyond you, it seems. Now return to me. Return to me. I say, come on, return to me already. Stop. They're mine. They apparently really liked Edis. They didn't react to Arcantus at all. Meanwhile, Edis looked like she died and gone to heaven. Apparently he defeated her. She was in a drooling state of bliss. The familiars somehow seem also delighted. Even though Edis was glomping on them with all of her might, they're actually something that can withstand her might. Having a familiar around the house that could withstand Edis would be nice. It would take a load off of Leo, Linnea, and Priscilla. After being thrown on her butt again, Roxy stood up and turned to Arcantus. Ugh, how cowardly. So this is how the followers of the rumored eccentric school of the North God style fight. Who are you calling eccentric? Don't lump me in with them. I wanted to see what kind of opponents you were. Nothing more. Yeah, right. Humph. As much as it irks me to be called eccentric, it matters not. Your champion is unable to defeat my familiars. You are weak. Now it's just you, magician. Well, if you surrender, I will let you go. There's an old saying in my family that we should be kind to the Midgard clan. If I back out now, who will save Rudius? You are stout of heart. Arcantus put his sword to his mouth and got on all fours, looking like a robot wolf. That was the North God style 4-leg stance. He dived at Roxy with terrifying speed. Roxy reacted in an instant. Majestic of Blade, I summon thee to strike my enemy down. Icicle Blade. She shortened the incantation, but she was up against one of Etof's personal guard. The black armor they wore was imbued with formidable magical resistance. Roxy's Icicle Blade skid off with a clang. Die. As Rudius panicked inside, Arcantos went spinning away as an incredible force crashed into his side. He flew right off the edge of the arena platform. Roxy, the other guards, and the shaggy familiars all stared after him with confusion. Then they turned and looked at Rudius in unison. Sorry about that. It slipped. Seeing Roxy in danger, he reacted with a stone cannon before he could stop himself. Usually, he'd at least call his spell to give his allies a heads up. Master Rudius. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Mor said no one would be killed, but Rudius wasn't going to watch, while Roxy weeps and writhes in agony, clutching a stump of her arm. Oh well, I'll allow it. Saving the hero when all seems lost is part of the princess's role after all. Actually, can I go down there? Or is there still a battle with the dragon that guards the tower where the princess is at? That's a good idea. Rudius! Zip it. Shh. 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 Again, starting your own fires. That's a good idea, but we'd have a hard time capturing a dragon. Well, the princess is already out here and taking part in the battle. The rules are a bit fuzzy on that point, so I don't see why not. Guess this is where I say goodbye. May you have a fortunate battle. I have a few things to get ready. Rudy leapt down to the arena, then ran to Roxy. Oh, Rudy, are you okay? I'm fine. I just got roped into Atoff's little comedy act. What about you? Reese looked over Roxy to make sure that she wasn't hurt. There was scorch marks on her robe, a few damp patches here and there, as well as burns and grazes on her face. She hadn't taken any major injuries. Either that, or she had healed herself. It's been tough. The third one was especially strong. A magic knight that wields fire and wind magic, and attacked both Edis and me at once. Reese wished that he'd gotten to see that. Yeah, I did too. It was probably epic. Roxy switched to using gestures to demonstrate how powerful Peridot of the Earth had been, though Rudius wasn't sure where the Earth part came in. That's a good question. Was fire and wind already taken? Roxy informed Rudius that he was the strongest magician and swordsman of the Ultimate Four, experienced at doing battle against multiple opponents. His strategy had been to attack Edis with magic, while targeting Roxy with sword. Roxy was forced to counter the magic that was sent at Edis, who didn't have any magic resistance, while Edis had to protect Roxy, whose physical defense was poor. Take note. These are one of those moments where it's like immediately, Rudius, you pull out that back pocket doodle thingy that you have where you have all those ideas of great ways to make money, and write down in there, find Edis some magic armor. So yeah, got to make sure that it looks nice on her still, and she's still flexible, but still like something that will give her some magic resistance. Or, I mean, similar to what he did with the whole situation with Sharon. Like, get her some sort of locket or something that can protect her against magic attacks. Time to hit up the storehouse from Orsted. But Edis fought Sword God style. Defense wasn't her strong suit. Unable to do any more than protect the other, they found themselves losing ground. But then Roxy had a flash of brilliance. In theory, a counterspell cancels the opponent's spell, and it's commonly held that a good counterspell uses precisely the same amount of force as the spell that it blocks. Roxy threw that common wisdom out of the window, as she called up water magic to counter fire magic, and earth magic to counter wind. She put far more power into them than the attacker's spell. All that remained when it was over was water and earth, creating mud all over the ground. Then Roxy used the combined spell Quagmire. In an instant, the mud became bog, forcing Peridot into a standstill. That was when Edis went in for the kill. Really cool idea. Really cool idea. And I like how Rudius kind of acknowledges that, like, man, I can never be that clever. Nothing less from Roxy the Wise. Quagmire was Rudius' signature move, but he knew it wasn't simple as using it immediately. An opponent would have found a way around it. Instead, Roxy used the residue of her counterspells to attack, something he wouldn't have expected. Rudius admitted that he could never be that clever. Yeah, I like this idea. Again, the idea here is they were getting into it a little bit with the fight for Sharon. I don't think they've really gotten too much into it before then, but this idea that if somebody were to attack you with, say, fire magic, you use water magic to essentially dissipate it. That's the counter spell concept there. It's not like Rudius' dispel magic kind of concept where it's cutting off the mana supply. The spell is coming, and you're using something to counter it to stop it. And yeah, what he's saying here is you're using about the same force, typically, with a typical counter attack or counter spell in order to stop that force, giving it equal energy to stop it in its place. Where she was using an abundance to overwhelm it and leave something behind until eventually turn it into a Quagmire. Because yes, right now they're inside of this arena. This isn't where there's mud and everything like that she can turn into a Quagmire. So she has to create the resources that eventually she'll turn into a Quagmire. Very cool. But when the next opponent came out, Edis nearby on the ground was twitching. Fearing that maybe the familiars were poisonous, Rudius rushed to her side. Ha, ha, ha. She was staring off into space, utterly blissed out. Her fingers were in a grabbing motion. It sounds like Rudius after Edis gets done with him in bed. Still severing the sensation of the familiar's fluff. It was indeed poison, just as he thought. Animals had a healing effect on Edis, a sort of medicine. Too much medicine could turn toxic. Let's just get her thinking straight again. Rudy, you usually groping her chest gets her on her feet, right? Huh? You don't mind? I do mind. You should never touch a woman's body without consent. But Demon King Etoff is going to be here soon. Dang, Roxy's one of them people. No, I'm joking. Here's your moment for all the people that get upset about what happens in Mushoku Tensei. See right here, it's saying something. Finally, Refugion's saying something. That's not right. Following Roxy's gaze, Etoff's personal guard had lined up. Moore was using a brazier to fill the area with smoke. The light from the bonfires illuminated the smoke, creating an ominous atmosphere. The ambience was being set for the Demon King's entrance. They had to do something, or they'd be without Edis. But his vow of celibacy was still in effect. He couldn't yield. Come on, Rudy. When you're done, you could touch mine too, as penance. This girl still has her own body shame. Like, this girl still downplays herself. She's like, Yeah, I'll let you touch her, and then afterward you can touch me, and that'll fix it. And of course, she could be saying the idea of, well, if you touch me too, then I'll be happy or whatever. But it almost sounds like she's saying it'll be an insult if you touch mine. That way, it'll be a punishment. No, he couldn't yield. But then the thought hit him. That's a tempting offer. But won't that end in her punching me and knocking me out? It won't help if Edis is awake, but I'm down for the count, right? That is true. If she still does that, I'm pretty sure she's done that recently. Oh, that's a fair point. Edis's body suddenly spasmed. She looked around frantically, her eyes cartoonishly wide. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? He's gone. Oh, Edis looked disappointed. But then her eyes found Rudius. Rudius, you're okay. She threw her arms around him, breasts pressing up against him. They were soft. He didn't have to cop a feel when she was in that trance. The twin peaks had fallen into his hands. Etov was just having a little bit of fun. It was over quickly. Well, that's good. But Rudius, this is all your fault. You had a joke about being a princess. I sincerely regret it. Though, he really had nothing to regret. There was no way to know this would happen. A normal demon king would have kidnapped a proper princess. Not a random dude calling himself one. Roxy tugged at Rudius' robe. Rudy, I was really worried too. The way that she said that was so sweet. She'd even given him a proper "are you okay" earlier. I know, don't worry. Rudius was feeling really happy. He hadn't been in serious trouble, but Edis and Roxy were worried, like he'd been fighting alongside them. They overcame those ordeals to save him. This must be what a princess feels like. He's totally he's becoming the princess. He's becoming literally the princess. The female Rudius. Was it Rudico? I think it's Rudico. A creepy laugh echoed from behind them. It was deep and sounded far away, as though if it was rising up from the pits of hell. Turning, they found the arena was already obscured by smoke. The sun had set, and bonfires extinguished, shrouding the scene in gloom. The darkness wasn't absolute. A magic circle was glowing. Usually magic circles were pale blue, but this glowed purple. Maybe they were using special paint, or maybe the effects of the magic circle was to glow with a purple light. Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It could be some special summoning and like it changes how that glows, or the circle itself just says glow purple. Like it's inscribed to say just glow. Interesting. Which I wouldn't doubt with how much theatrics they're putting into this whole process. The billows of smokes were illuminated by purple light. It felt like a mega celebrity was about to mount the stage. Without a word, Edis stood up and brought her sword to ready. Rudius only caught a glimpse of her face, but she looked hyped at what would come. Her excitement was kind of infectious. Still, nothing special was coming. Just that jerk from earlier. An echoing voice rang out across the arena. You who have broken through my most elite Ultimate 4, stationed throughout Fort Necros. You've done a great job to reach me on the other side. They weren't stationed anywhere particular, but never mind. All part of the show. Like, yeah, they have the script. You have to stick to the script. Stick to the script. Traversing the Demon Continent and laying siege to Fort Necros. Truly you are mighty to have made it here. I commend you. All of you are truly worthy to be called champions. Edis should be proud. She got an official certificate of championhood from the Demon King. Rudius also multiclassed into champion. Princess Champion Rudius. He's just taking it. He's just like, at this point, I'm just going to take it. Just give it to me. Give me the badge. You shall be rewarded. Suddenly, things got serious. A wind picked up in the arena, blowing the smoke farther and farther away. At the same time, Rudius felt a chill. From the depths of where the smoke was being blown, Rudius felt an all-encompassing, murderous aura. He gulped involuntarily, and he wondered what might emerge, even though there was only one candidate. Your reward! A sharp gust of wind blew, clearing the smoke in seconds. With a whoosh, all the bonfires burst back into flame, starkly illuminating the arena. There in the center stood a woman. She had blue skin and white hair, wings like a bat, a single thick horn protruding from her forehead. Though she was a little shorter than Edis, the battle-worn armor that she wore made her appear larger. She wielded a great sword that looked too heavy for her slender arms. The right to challenge me! There before them was the immortal Demon King, Atofratov Rabak. And that is chapter 9. Let's just get right into chapter 10. Go right into chapter 10. But no, I do love this. I love the theatrics. The theatrics is so freaking great. Because what's so great about it is that this entire time, Rudius has been laughing about how this is a routine. They even mentioned the idea that when Edis and Roxy were fighting them, it like had that little moment where the narrator's basically saying, if Rudius was here, he'd probably make some joke about this bad guy routine. Yeah, this is something he's going to find comical because he acknowledges that it's all a play. And yes, we got the confirmation with Moore. Literally said this is the fairy tales that she's literally playing out. Which, yes, played in my theory more and more, the idea that I was curious if Moore was trying to get Rudius to do this so that he can break this cycle. Finish the story for Etov. I don't recall him ever mentioning it. I was kind of assuming that was going to be the case, that at some point he was going to confirm that, yes, you broke the cycle. Maybe they'll talk about it later on or something like that. But still, this is a fairy tale. And so it is kind of funny to have Rudeus right here. He knows full well this is all just this big theatrics. Even the summoning circle is probably just wrote to make it purple, which is adds that silliness of the whole situation. But even still, he gets a little bit scared. Like it still overwhelms him. Like it's still scary. In the end of the day, put aside the theatrics, this is still a dangerous thing. It's like you can have like this goofy little routine where, you know, clowns are dancing around, but then suddenly a lion is walked out into the arena, and you as a person standing in the arena, you're probably going to want to get out of there because there's a good chance they can't stop that and it can maul you to death. There's still that thing where it's still dangerous despite the fact this is all stupid and comical. I think there is sort of a fear that comes from fighting somebody that doesn't know death. Etoph is an immortal demon king. Edis isn't. Roxy isn't. Rudeus isn't. These three are mortal. This is immortal. And there is a fear that fighting somebody that is immortal, even if they say they're not intending to kill, there's still that fear that they might not know how much they can push an actual mortal and not kill them. And yes, there's still accidents. I didn't mean to kill you, but it still happened. You get into the fray of battle, especially with somebody like Edis, they're getting crazy, they're having fun, they're just tearing at each other. There's a good chance they can go a little bit overboard. They can overextend themselves if they're constantly blocking each other, and so their attacks are coming out as if it's probably going to get blocked, and eventually it doesn't get blocked. Dead. So I think that still kind of all culminates to still make this kind of terrifying for Rudeus, despite the fact that he knows this is a dorky little routine. Chapter 10, Clash with the Demon King Etoph. I'm the immortal Demon King Etoph Ryback. If you defeat me, I shall recognize you as champions. If you lose, you will serve as my puppets until the day you draw your last breath. Etoph radiated malice. A lone figure stood against her. The champion. I'm the Sword King Edis Rayrat. Etoph radiated malice, and Edis faced her down, raising her Phoenix Dragon sword, one of the 7 sword god blades, above her head. Sword god style! Etoph looked happy. Without taking her eyes off Edis, she drew her sword. Just so you know, Sword of Light won't work on me. Edis didn't react. She knew. She heard the legend of the immortal demon kings. Etoph couldn't be beaten. It wasn't a question of technique. Etoph was slow, and her sword was dull. She simply didn't die. No attack, no mortal wound could kill her. No matter how much you hit her, she'd spring right back up. In the end, she would win through sheer resilience. In the Laplace War, there had been fewer than a dozen valiant warriors who'd been able to stand against her. The 3 god slayers stood among those few. The only individual ever to beat her one-on-one was the North god Kalman, or so the stories went. Edis had assessed whether her strength was enough to topple the Demon King, and she knew the answer was no. Alone, it was impossible. The idea of challenging a being of legends was exhilarating, but she knew there was no way she could beat Etoph with her own strength. This is all interesting, because it does kind of beg the question of, yeah, if you can literally never kill her, if she just keeps getting back up, how could anybody ever defeat her? It says right here, fewer than a dozen valiant warriors have been able to stand against her. That doesn't mean that they defeated her. That just sort of implies to me that they were able to stand one-on-one with her, and then maybe something else got involved. Maybe something kind of interrupted them. The fight just kind of eventually, they just stopped. Maybe they were just so equal that they, like I was saying earlier, the idea of Edis and the furry guy, that it seemed like they would probably just keep going until eventually they're like, okay, nothing's happening. You're not going to hit Edis. Edis is not going to be able to hit you or harm you. I guess we'll just call it a draw. But I do kind of question, what did North God Kalman do? How did he beat her? If she can always get back up, if she can always regenerate herself, how did he beat her? The only thing I can think of is that he rendered her unable to regenerate. Like the idea of, okay, how do you defeat an immortal person? Typically, like in a lot of stories, what you'll hear is they'll lop off the head and stick it in a box. And that way they can't grow back out. It's just like they can't regenerate themselves because they're inside that box and they can't connect those tissues. It's always comes down to an idea of where the core is, isolate that, and put it into an object that can't expand out of or bring objects back in. And that's typically how you do it. Could he have just rendered her unable to move? Then eventually she gave up. Put her in a headlock that she couldn't get out of, bound her down somehow, kinky stuff, bound her down somehow, and he could, or did he just charm her? Did he just simply charm her? Could be. Edis wasn't going to mope about it. She might not have the necessary ability, but someone else here did. They discussed it in advance.
Hey, say something.
Edis didn't reply.
Hold on. There's a guy like you who did the thing of concentrating all of his energy and then coming at me with a single ultimate blow.
When Edis still didn't say anything, she chuckled.
I got a good memory, see? I remember it well. That blow never hit me. I squashed him with my fist, like a toad.
Etov gave an evil snicker, reminiscing, then glared at Edis.
Well, Edis Grey Rat, this'll be a gamble of a lifetime for you. Will you humiliate yourself in front of your trusted companions, or will you obtain glory?
She tapped her skull.
Here's my head, see? If you take it home, you'll be a hero of humanity for all eternity.
Etov was supremely confident. The look on her face said, no way this lady can kill me. The guards around them were waiting, talking amongst themselves about her letting her guard down again. It seemed a part of being a descendant of the immortal demon kings was allowing heroes to get the first swing. Well, obviously, you want it to be more fun. What fun is it when you rarely get this chance to fight somebody, or are you just going to go flop and kill them? And the fact that you are immortal demon king, you can take hits and you're not going to die, so why not make it more fun? Make it more exciting. Or they could just really like pain. They could just like pain. Oh, yes, hit me. They're that type.
I don't need any glory, but I'm going to cut off your head. All words, Edis Grey Rat.
Her voice thundered across the arena.
Come and try it.
Evening sun sank behind the mountains and darkness settled. The two women were illuminated by purple flames of the torches. Etov's eyes blazed. Edis glared back, undaunted. Their eyes were locked on each other, each wanting the other dead. Yes. Sorry, I keep thinking about that.
Yes.
Etov's personal guards weren't looking at Edis or Etov. Instead, their eyes were fixated on the giant behind Edis. There, in the dim light, stood a towering figure made of stone, standing about 3 meters tall. Where could it have come from? Had someone used summoning magic? But no, there was none of the after effects of that. A few steps behind the giant stood a blue-haired magician. She clenched her fists in a clear declaration of success, looking up at the giant. Oh, why didn't Edis, this savage sword god-style warrior, attack? One of the guards understood, sighing with admiration. Edis was buying time so that Rudius could get ready. Roxy had summoned the magic armor, version 1. Well, there's a confirmation that it was all version 1. Again, I acknowledge the idea that if he had version 1, it would be like talking about him clanking around, and yeah, technically they probably would have acknowledged it.
Who? Whoa!
Etov looked at the figure behind Edis and made an odd noise. She recognized the armor from long ago, back before the Laplace War. She'd seen it in the Second Human-Demon War, before it was sealed away. It looked a little different than how she remembered. It was a new color, but such changes were trivial. Back then, there had once been many sets of armor like this one. Many of them. I don't think they ever... I think they did mention that there was a couple or something like that at some point, but I don't think they mentioned many of them. This is a complete set, which does kind of play more in that theory of, well, I mean, again, I do think that a lot of that had to do with the man god. I think the man god was involved with a lot of that stuff, and he probably had them make it back then.
Fighting god armor.
Etov was muttering as she stared up, stunned. Yeah. At that moment, Edis attacked. Edis' sword whistled through the air, following the shortest, straightest path to Etov's neck, while the Demon King gaped at the magic armor. The magic blade, like a beam of silver light, met its mark with all its lethal force intact, sliding it into Etov's flesh. Then, on through. Alarm showed on Edis' face, and her sword stopped. It came to a halt around halfway through Etov's neck. Meanwhile, Etov's sword was buried deep in Edis' right shoulder, and Edis' right arm wasn't moving. Very interesting. They mentioned just a little bit ago that Etov's sword was dull. Despite it being dull, now how dull is the question mark? Like, it's not razor sharp and thus it's dull, but it can still technically cut. But that sort of indicates to me of just like sheer brute force, I guess. She hadn't merely stopped. Someone had stopped her. Sword of light pierced right through between bones, essentially becoming a load-bearing beam within whatever body it penetrated. That was why it was renowned as the ultimate sword technique, and it had been blocked.
Yeah!
Edis immediately gave up on her right arm. Using only her left, she pulled her blade free. Normally, Sword of Light should have taken her opponent's head clean off. With just one hand, however, its power was reduced. A third of Etov's neck remained unsevered, still firmly attached to her torso. That would mean death in normal battle. Getting even a third of your neck sliced through would be a mortal wound, but Edis' opponent was Etov, Immortal Demon King Etov.
Yeah!
Etov looked like a corpse as she kicked Edis away. Like necks like this, kick her away. I just know that's going to probably be animated kind of weird because they kind of don't like decapitation in Japan. An awful bong sound pealed as Edis went flying. Roxy caught her. Blood flowed freely from her arm. She stared at Etoff with unwavering murder in her eyes. She still wanted to fight, but her part was over for now. Etoff howled a battle cry, then turned towards Rudius. She held up her sword in defensive stance, then leaned forward into a lunge as he readied his Gatling gun. Maybe it was some animal instincts that made her come for him, when he still hadn't done anything. Well, yeah, you're the obvious threat. She knows, based on the past, what that can do. She's going to take care of it quickly. Edis isn't a threat. Roxy isn't a threat. She knows, based on her past experience, that is a threat. Maybe it was based on experience. Yeah. With Edis out of the way, his line of fire was clear. Fire. He unleashed a hail of stone cannons. On his first step, Etoff's armor was shattered into dust. His second, her shoulder was shredded and sword thrown in the air. On his third, her torso, peppered with holes like a honeycomb, was blown off her pelvis. That was no fourth step. Her remaining lower half lurched and fell. There was no blood, maybe because she was Immortal Demon King, but it would have been nauseating if there was. Reese still wasn't used to killing people. He never would be. Very interesting. Now, we got into a little bit of this with the whole Sharon battle thing, and there was like a sort of acceptance there, but he was kind of realizing at some point that it was a switch. Thankfully, because I've taken this action, I don't feel like I can easily just kill anybody. There's still a switch there. There's still a morality in his brain there that he is still putting a cap on it. I still don't want to kill anybody. I don't senselessly kill people, basically. I still keep to people that I have to. Here he's saying, I'm still not okay with it. He was only able to use Gatling gun at point blank because he knew she wouldn't die. That's right. Even after this, she wouldn't die. Roxy applied healing on Edis, then looked around anxiously at the personal guard. Did we do it? Without Etoff to give them orders, they wouldn't attack. Not one of them was worried about Etoff. They had complete faith in her immortality. Not yet. The guards muttered amongst themselves.
Do we go next? No, impossible.
Keep your eyes down. Did you see that attack carved through black steel?
Armor won't do us any good, huh? What's even that magic?
Last time he fought Lady Etoff, he attacked her with a super powerful stone cannon. It's probably that.
No, the shocking thing was... Shocking. The shocking thing there was the lightning.
Ah, makes sense. So, like a rapid fire stone cannon. So that means that, what is it, a staff? Is it a magic weapon, separate from the armor?
They were analyzing the fight. Did nothing get them worked up? But then they probably knew that it would take more than that to kill Etoff. She would regenerate. She was literally in the process of it now. Scattered chunks flocked together to form bigger clumps. Her life force was so strong, it felt like it wouldn't matter if a few bits of them were out of the hole, because any flesh that remained would regenerate through mitosis. A creature like that, wearing armor and training for battle, no wonder she was tough. As she finished regenerating, her entire upper half was naked. This is something that just completely bothers him for the rest of the chapter, and she just doesn't care. She's like, why would I care? Her abs were more well-defined than Edis's, and her breasts, while not as big as Edis's, were on full display. Rius wondered if there was any point for a creature like that working out, but it seemed there was. There was probably more of a point of getting ripped when your cells couldn't die like normal people. It was intriguing. I kind of wonder about that. I know this is kind of a stupid thing to kind of question, but I do this sometimes. I do kind of wonder that. If the idea that you will live forever, would that make you want to be fit more? Because yes, the idea of not living forever, you want to get fit so that you can live a little bit longer or some significant amount longer depending on how bad you get or how good you get. Whereas if you were living forever, you might have a more desire to get fit because your cells aren't going to decay. It's never going to go away. You want to have this pristine body that you can go on and do things for forever. But I think for her whole purpose here is just this because she likes fighting. She's going to get fit. It's a byproduct of it. It's not that she focused on it. Do you still want to fight? Reese had come ready for a drawn-out battle where he'd use every skill at his disposal, but he hadn't come with hostile intent. If he decided Etoff was too much of a hassle, he would try to imprison or exterminate. Then more would get involved. Having made that call, more could command Etoff's guard to attack. That's what Orsted had told Rudius. Rudius thought about how to handle that eventuality. If Orsted talked about this, then why were you surprised earlier that it was still going to turn into a conflict? Etoff didn't tell me about... Yes, he did. He told you that this could happen. Her regeneration was a hassle, but beating her down over and over again until she was satisfied was a better option. Yeah, just satisfy it. He didn't know how long it would take, but he'd hold out as long as his mana did. But then, Etoff yelled back.
No.
Moore ran over and put a cloak on her.
I'll get you a change of armor at once, Lady Etoff.
It ruined her armor. Not the armor. They're so obsessed with their armor. Not the armor. Etov huffed, then sat down on the ground with a thud, crossing her legs. Apparently, she wasn't going to fight. She stared resentfully up at Rudius. Very interesting. The first time, that's all it took. I think it has something to do with the armor. I mean, she does get into it a little bit. I think it has something to do with the armor. I wonder if the armor is somehow tied to Kalman. I don't think that would have been the same time frame. It might have, but I think she would say that. I think she would probably say that. Rudius was generally surprised. He was convinced she'd charge at him like a wild boar, or command her guards to attack on all sides. Edda stood between the two of them, sword at ready, but Etov didn't spare a single glance. Behind Rudius, Roxy gripped her staff, but she'd probably have no chance to use it. Etov continued to stare at Rudius for a long time before saying a word. After what felt like forever, she finally spoke up.
Do you remember more?
I'm afraid I wasn't alive for the Great Human Demon War.
Oh, right. True. It wasn't like that back then. It was way flashier. It didn't have that weapon, but it was faster, stronger too.
She had to be talking about the original fighting god armor, the ultimate suit of armor crafted by Laplace.
But that's what humans were like. They were weak at first, helpless as babies. They broke and fled the moment we attacked. But as time went on, they changed. New characters, new armor, new weapons, even the way they fought.
Using her voice more calmer just agitates my throat.
They gathered together and scattered apart, lay in wait in the mountains, and faced off across the rivers. And as they did so, little by little, they grew stronger. Cal used to say that was the human strength.
It's bringing it in there. Yeah, it's right here, technically bringing it in. I totally forgot about that line. It's literally bringing that whole thing in there. Etov looked composed, and she actually sounded intelligent. Maybe Immortal Demon Kings got sage-like post-regeneration, just like humans after other activities. For Etov, this is totally just like post in clarity. She had a fun fight. She's like, ah. But again, this goes into that whole realm of like, don't judge a book by its cover. Like I kept saying about Bodigadi for the longest time, Kishirika for the longest time. They act silly, but there is an element of realization there. I would argue for myself. Let me use myself for example, because I think this is actually true. And I think a lot of people in the chat will agree with me. A lot of people watching this will probably agree with me. There is this element that, at least for me, again, when I was young, obviously, I was a dork like any other kid. I was an immature little dork like any other kid. I had fun, did stupid stuff, won stupid prizes. And as I got older, yes, eventually getting into like the teenage years, yes, you get that point which you're like, okay, being this is not like accepted by society anymore. I can't look like a kid anymore. I got to stop. I was still silly, like, because that was just how I fit in with groups. I wasn't the most fit-looking person. I didn't feel like I was the most good-looking person. I wasn't in the part of the popular crowd, but I tried to kind of be on the edge of certain groups just by being silly. I was just the comedy act. That was how I connected with people and fit in, was being a goofball, making Arnold Schwarzenegger voices and just being a dumb idiot. That's how I fit in. That was my experiences. Now, as I got a little bit older than that, I had a couple moves, and so I got a point in my life where I just didn't want to bother remaking friends. I lost a lot of my friends and moves and stuff, and I didn't want to bother getting new friends. So I had this little period of time where I felt like kind of a little bit of a recluse, a little bit of not introverted, but just not social. And what I realized at some point in my life was that I think that's part of it, not really wanting to care to connect to people, but I think there is an element of at some point realizing I don't really care what society deems as being fitting in. I see things that I want to do. Those things make me happy. Those things give me joy. And whether or not society accepts it or not, I don't really give a rip. That's, I think, a story that most people with anime have. This idea that society looks at it and sees it's cartoons for kids, or they see it and they say it's that tentacle stuff, or it's inappropriate, or it shouldn't be allowed. The stories they tell are unacceptable. But at some point you realize, at the end of the day, I don't care what you think. I want to do this. And I think there is an element of that applying to your personality as well. I just want to be silly because it makes me happy. I want to have fun. I want to be a little silly. I want to be a little eccentric. I want to be a Kishirika. I want to cackle and charge down the way. But people will see that and say, this dude's nuts. This person's an idiot. This person's childish. Kishirika doesn't care because she's probably seen it all. She wants to have fun. Bodyguardi got a lot into that. Bodyguardi got in the idea of, this is my relative was too into this. Nephew, I think it was. He's too into getting stronger. Don't focus too much on that boy. Enjoy life. There's an element with Bodyguardi, enjoy life. Drink, be merry. Something happens, let's go party. What's it about? He doesn't know. Just have fun, drink, be merry. He's been around. He's seen some stuff. He's acknowledged that these things don't matter much. It doesn't matter. Have fun. That's why I feel a lot of these demon kings, these immortal demon kings, are like. They've been around for so long, they've seen so much stuff, and they just want to have fun. They don't want to have these stupid conversations with humans who think this current moment, this crisis they're talking about right now is important. It's too much. I don't care. Rudy's coming in there. Hey, I got this battle with this guy Geese. He's coming after me. He's getting in really powerful guys. He's coming after me to come take me out, and I want to have your help. Here's this right here. Here's an apology for this. Here's the... Etof's like, I don't care. What are you here for? What do you want? What do you want me to blast? I don't care about all this extra stuff. You're getting me involved with your politics and your issues. I just want to have fun. And from the outsider, again, that looks like she's dumb. That looks like she's simple-minded. That makes it look like she's just an idiot, that all she cares about is fighting. But there's more in there. And that's like a lot of characters like that. Like Edis is another example. I always want to give her the benefit of doubt, always thinking she's probably thinking about this much more than we think she is. Rudius often in his head, 99% of the time, 99.99% of the time, is always thinking Edis is simple. And she probably is. But there's probably a lot of other things in her mind for that. There's probably other things she's thinking about. We got a little bit of a taste of that in the previous chapter, and this idea that she was thinking about how Roxy thinks through those situations. That's enough. She acknowledges her weaknesses. That's big. She acknowledges that Roxy can handle situations like that. That's big. Not that she's an idiot, but that she's actually smart for acknowledging somebody else is better fit for a situation than she is. She thought it through. All of these Demon Kings are not stupid. Kishirika's not stupid. She could turn out to be really stupid. They're not stupid. They think about this stuff. It's just they don't care. They've chosen actively not to care. Really is what it is, I think. Sorry, that went longer than I thought it would. Comes with telling us life story. Andrew's life story time. Everybody sit down. It's story time. And it is funny that sometimes people can see that and just absolutely judge it. And it's like, you're so joyless. I get that a lot with these people that are so joyless and they just don't want you to be happy. Because why? They're miserable. People that don't like you being happy, enjoying your anime waifus, having a blast, being silly, chatting on Discord about the goofiest things, those people that are upset about that are joyless, and they want everybody else to be as joyless as they are. Don't be a Kishirika. Be joyless. I say in response to that, go have your joyless life. I'm perfectly happy where I'm at. Etof looked composed.
You made that?
I did. Etof's eyes looked bright and refreshed.
Huh. You're strong, aren't you? Really strong. Funny, you pathetic humans are catching up with the Dragon Clan, when even my father couldn't defeat them, no matter how he struggled.
Very interesting. Again, acknowledging the idea of them creating the armors. It sort of seems like it feels like it's right here. It's connecting it strictly to the humans. The fighting god was on the side of the humans, and the humans created these armors. Or at least many of these armors, these magic armors, were created by the humans. They advance the stuff. They get stronger and they get stronger. It's connecting all that stuff specifically to the humans. And right here, she's acknowledging the Dragon Clan's strong, obviously. I think we've seen plenty so far to acknowledge, which I'm assuming she's talking about the dragons themselves, the Dragonkin, Dragon Folks, Petagus and Orsted and all them. They're extremely strong. We've seen how freaking strong they are, especially Orsted. Right here, it's saying the humans are catching up to them, and specifically through the armor. We obviously seen that version 1 at least did not get anywhere near Orsted, but it was good. It was good. It expended his mana.
Even when my father couldn't defeat them.
She stood up slowly, then ordered more to her side and looked up at Rudius, where Rudius was struggling to understand what she'd said. What about that struggle to understand? She folded her arms and went on.
I am defeated. As promised, I will join your cause, as long as you're still alive.
That was how Etof became his ally. For now, she told him,
You beat me, Rudius, and so I name you champion.
So he became champion too. Nice little wrap up there. That was a really cool little moment there. I was kind of waiting for that for the longest time. When are we going to get that moment where suddenly Etof just goes, all right, let's have a talk. here's my other side. I'm no longer standing up on that stage and being crazy and battle ready. I'm gonna come down to your level, talk to you. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with, again, this armor and the connection to Kalman, specifically Cal. Later, there was a banquet at Etof's fortress at the training grounds, a banquet to celebrate the death of the Demon King, hosted by the vanquished Demon King herself. It's always great to have a banquet for your own defeat. But again, this is that sign. And again, I don't recall it ever specifically saying it, but this is that sign that I think the whole thing here was that Moore wanted this to happen so that she'd finally stop this whole charade. That she'll finally stop trying to be her father. And that was all in her wanting to do what she thought was in this history book that her father did, and she has to do it too to be like him. Now that she's been defeated, she might finally start to try to find something else to do. Find some other goal, some other purpose. Stop holding on to her father and be her own self. That's why, in the end, I think Moore was doing this. And I don't know if people were getting frustrated with me, and I kept bringing that up in the previous chapter, was why did Moore do that? Because again, they were already going to fight. Even Edis acknowledged it. But wait, that doesn't make any sense. We were already going to fight. And now we're going to do this so that we can fight. Why did Moore whisper in her ear? He whispered in her ear, that's the princess. Let's do it. Capture her. I think he was saying that because he wanted Rudius to fix this. Defeat her. Hopefully he can defeat her and fix this. The Demon King Etof had been defeated, but that didn't mean any of her prisoners got to go free. That's a bummer. And again, the question mark is, do they want to? Some of them probably really do like serving her. Rudius didn't bring it up, figuring she wouldn't understand. And besides, it was his problem if her personal guard got weaker from here on out. That's such a selfish comment right there. It almost feels like he's saying, like, I don't want them to become weaker because we need them for later. He decided to leave things where they were. He couldn't free everyone. Well, he would help some of them if they were desperate. So long as he did it slowly, Etof wouldn't notice. He's like, I'm gonna just get him smuggled out of the fortress. Still, Etof's personal guard all looked like they were happily enjoying the feast. None of them seemed like they were about to rise up and revolt, which made sense. It wasn't like they had beaten Etof themselves.
This is a joyous day. We shall drink, we shall sing, and we shall fight.
Despite her defeat, Etof was in high spirits. She was having a great time, making her servants do battle in the central area. She even enjoyed the present he had brought her. It was strange, but she kind of reminded Rudius of Bodigadi at this moment. Well, yeah. After a battle, her first priority was to drink and sing. They were siblings, after all. I think it would be more closer to Bodigadi if the moment that Rudius arrived and he brought the drinks out, drink and be merry. Like, wah, let's drink and be merry. I haven't got to know Bodigadi voice in a long time. Wah. Maybe the immortal Lacrosse had been like this too.
Good. Crush him. Raise your guard. Come on, raise it.
They fought hand to hand in the arena. No weapons, no armor, just knuckles. The brawniest men in Etof's personal guard pummeled each other, and it was very macho. Wait, one wasn't a guard or a man.
The victor is Edis.
Edis stood in the arena. She must have had some fuel left to burn after the battle with Etof. It's like, any excuse to fight some stuff, why not? They're fighting in the arena? Hell yeah, Edis is going to be like, where do I start? Where do I sign up? She was beating the crap out of the demons with ferocity of a feral dog. The girl never stopped. It was a good fight. The lizard-faced guard gave as good as she got. It was a sign of how elite Etof's personal guard were. Taking Edis' sword away, they were evenly matched. Contestants laid sprawled out unconscious on the ground at the edge of the arena. Edis had already beaten up 3 of them. She'd taken a few knocks, but Roxy was there as her second, using healing magic. She'd be fine. Edis had gotten a whole lot stronger. Etof cackled with delight.
You're a tough one. Just what you expect from the champion's comrade. All right, who's next? Who's it gonna be?
I challenge you, Demon King Etof. Get down here and fight me. As Edis shouted, Etof cackled again.
You're an even bigger moron than Kishirika. Challenging me to unarmed combat. I like that. All right, I'll fight you.
It's so fun. They become such friends. Etof and Edis are going to become friends, which is such a crazy contrast if you think about it. Again, what was the story from the future Rudius? That Rudius was fighting Etof, and Edis took a blow for him. Etof killed Edis in the future diaries, and here they're like becoming friends. She's been acknowledged by Etof. And yes, technically, Etof's joining Rudius for now. Etof threw her cloak with a dramatic swish. Then, still naked from the waist up, went to the arena. All right, Edis, time to take it off. just do us full on naked, like. We're getting into some water sports going on here. We're gonna get some Keijo here. The banquet approached its peak. You had to use the word peak, right? You had to use the word peak, right? Cheers were so loud the ground felt like it would split. As Rudius wondered who would win, Moore called out,
Master Rudius? Master Rudius?
Sorry. He wasn't at the banquet. He was sitting with Moore in a room in the fortress, discussing what to do next. He should be at the banquet. Who was it in honor of again? Or he's like, I should be down there. They're supposed to be honoring me. Why is the champion not at the champion banquet?
Thank you for the details. I have here a request for the search and extermination of the man god's disciple Geese, and support in the fight against him. The search for Kishirika, the establishment of an intelligence service, and support in the fight against demon god Laplace. Is that the extent of it?
That's right. Unlike Etov, Moore was a guy that you could talk to. He heard Rudius' request, put them in order, and gave them due consideration. Maybe some time long ago, Etov's brain had gotten a mind of its own, escaped her skull, and turned into Moore. We just established she's actually thinking about stuff, and you're still being mean to her. This is going to be the ongoing thing. Rudius is so mean to the Immortal Demon Kings. Rudius discriminates against Immortal Demon Kings. But yeah, I mean, he gets into it. I do like that he kind of breaks it down here.
Setting aside the first two for now, I doubt we'll be able to help with the second two, especially the fight against Laplace.
Is it really impossible? Does she have some sort of obligation to Laplace?
Lady Etov, lost to you, and you alone. If you die, that becomes null and void. Will you be alive in 80 years?
Probably not. In the end, her debt was to Rudius. Maybe he should have played it out to make her think that she lost to Roxy. Too late for that now. Chalk it up as destiny.
The mercenary band is also a problem.
Is it a territorial thing?
Lady Etov reigns over this region, but her only subjects are her guards. If you want to set up another organization, that is your prerogative, but they'll have to look after themselves.
Very well. The mercenary band was a no-go. They could set it up, but they'd always have to keep in mind that they were operating next to an organization led by Etov. There would be problems. It wouldn't be smarts that were needed to resolve them, but brute force. They could always return to find it up in smoke.
To find Kishirika, we can send letters signed by Etov to all the Demon Kings. Their excellencies should be willing to assist with a search operation.
Thank you.
Don't thank me. You're the one who'll deliver them, Master Rudius. We lack adequate information on the whereabouts of the teleportation circles.
But of course, this guy did know about the teleportation circles, so Rudius didn't need to hide them. Yeah, I think these are all good points. So he basically, I always like how Rudius is not ashamed to kind of just lay things out. Like he's done it a couple times where he feels like, I could probably ask about the mercenary band, but I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. I think he pretty much did that with the King Dragon realm. There is times where he does hold back, but I do appreciate the idea of being willing to kind of say, here is everything I need. Don't hold anything. I want all this stuff. Now tell me what you can do. And it's great. Moore's like going through it and going, all right, here's the bullet points. He took them all, said, okay, so let me get this straight. This is all that you're asking for. Yep. Okay, let's go through each one of them. Finding Kishirika. Okay, we'll send all these letters to all the Demon Kings. They'll probably help you out. Okay, establishing pretty much the mercenary band. Setting up some intelligence service, which I'm assuming is that. Yeah, we can't do that because anybody that comes to this fortress, what are they here for? They're here to challenge Etov. And then they end up joining her guard. There's probably nobody here besides her guards. Who's going to join him? Nobody. They're all here under service of Etov. So you have a conflict there between the two of them. Now, I do think it's good, and he talks about it later on. He's going to set up a communication tablet at least. So at least they're going to still have a communication to them, just not an intelligence network and this mercenary band building up there. Support against the Laplace. I like that response. It's not necessarily, wait, so she's got an allegiance to Laplace. She can't break from that. She can't join us no matter what. Well, you're going to be dead by the time he comes, right? It's obvious that he's told him Laplace is coming, and he's like, well, you're not going to live that long, so obviously she's probably not going to help you. Unless you figure out, like it goes to my theory that I've had before, I still have that theory that because Rudius has caused such a shift in the world itself, by being there and everything that happened, and again, the displacement incident, which is shattering a lot of how the world grows up and ages, a lot of people disappeared or died or was just displaced, and thus you can think that people being displaced somewhere else will produce children they wouldn't normally have produced before with different people than they did before. So much has changed. Yes, Destiny is still trying to keep things flowing like it normally did, but a lot has changed. I still feel like Laplace is going to come back early, and thus, yes, she can probably still help him. This still means that, well, if he still keeps it in stone, like, it's going to be difficult because you're not going to be here in 80 years. Well, okay, keep that in mind in case it does come back. That would be my response.
In case Laplace comes back before and I'm still alive, yeah, please help me. But did he respond to Geese? I wonder. I don't think he did respond to that.
Lady Kishidika won't give you the runaround unless she's got a good reason to. I doubt it will take long to find her.
Yes, though faster is always better.
It'll depend on how fast you deliver the letters, but I imagine you'll find her within a year.
Why do you think that she's always roaming around like that?
I wouldn't presume to know what goes through the minds of old demons like her.
Fair enough. I do kind of wonder. I'd assume it's her trying to find somebody or possibly trying to just band people together. Just trying to keep her presence known there, restore her power, all that kind of stuff. It probably all comes into mind there. We just wasn't sure how old Moore was, but he was an immortal demon, possibly well over a few centuries.
You have grown stronger, Master Rudius. You're like a different man compared to when I saw you last.
That's thanks to the magic armor.
You're too modest.
It's not modesty. I might have gotten hold enough power to make Lady Etop yield, but my personal strength hasn't increased dramatically at all. Rudius knew that strength was something you can make, provided you combine magic with skill. But he didn't combine that strength on his own. He had the help of Zenoba, Cliff, and recently Roxy. Without them, the magic armor would have never been completed, and he would never have learned how to operate it. I do love this about Rudius. I love that he's able to acknowledge his own weaknesses, and not just that, but acknowledge the help that others give him. This idea that he's constantly going, I'm not that great. I had great people. The strength of the center, which in this case is like Rudius is the leader. The strength of the leader is his subordinates. Those that he surrounded himself, really. I don't want to make it sound like a subordinates. Rudius would probably, in his organization mind, think that, but it's really those that surround him. Those that support him make him that strong. He's not ripped. He just has all of these beams throughout his body that are the individuals that support him. It's really a cool thing that he always keeps in mind because it's very counter to very early Rudius. This idea that, especially during that whole situation with Orsted early on, he was shouldering all that burden himself. He didn't want to ask anybody else for help. He couldn't open up to anybody. He just kept it all to himself. And thus, he was having to go by his own strength. Yes, Zenoba and them were still helping him with the armor and stuff like that, not knowing what he was doing. Now that he's acknowledged how much they're helping him and how open he is about this stuff, he's relying on them more. It's good.
You're only the second person to whose strength Lady Etop has acknowledged after just one blow. The first was Lord Kalman, the first North God.
I don't think I'm the level of a great power. If she kept fighting and resurrecting herself, Rudius figured he would have lost. The magic armor burned a lot of energy, and he only had so much magic in reserve.
There's nothing wrong with compensating for what you lack, whether it be skill, weapons, or allies. Lady Etop recognizes that.
That is so good. That is so good.
That's why she always tells the challengers to come at her all together. That's what makes humans strong, according to her.
She has taken that to her heart. Kalman recognized that. Kalman recognized the strength of humans, how they band together, they get stronger, they get more intelligent, they build, and they overcome things. She wants to have all humans that come before her come with everything. No, you bring a massive weapon. That's cheating. No, she doesn't care. You built that. You assembled that. You brought that. Use it. You bring an army. Good on you. You band together. Come at me. Ugh, I'm falling in love with Etop more and more right now. I love this. I love this mindset of, you're not cheating. You assembled that. That's the key thing. You're not cheating. You assembled that weapon. You're not cheating. You assembled those allies. You're not cheating. You assembled that skill. You assembled that armor. That is all you. That is you. The magic armor for Rudius is an extension of himself. It's proof of his achievements, really. It's the achievement of getting all those people together. Getting Zenoba, Nanahoshi, Cliff, Roxy, Julie, getting everybody together. That's an achievement of his. And yes, even Man God. Even the Man God, yes. He used the Man God. The Man God helped Rudius beat Etop. I bet if Man God could see what was happening in that arena, he'd probably be just like biting on something. No. Human strength was in combining their powers, so using weapons and fighting alongside others were just different kinds of tactics and skills. There was no cowardly way to fight. Yep, that was how Etop had come to accept her defeat, and why Moore was praising him. So cool. So cool. I like this.
But remember, Lady Etop still has the skills of a North God-style warrior, and us, her personal guard. Don't be fooled into thinking she fought you with no holds barred.
I'll be sure not to forget. Well, like, Rudius already acknowledged this. He literally acknowledged it a few points before. If she kept getting up, I'd be done. He knows it. He knows full damn well she gave up. She could have kept going, but she gave up. Thank goodness she gave up. Otherwise, I'd be figuring out the hell to get out of there. This time, Rudius fought Etoff alone, but that was Etoff at her weakest. She was always drawing on power of others to enhance her own. She would arm and armor herself, and she had her personal guards. When she went into battle for real, she mobilized all of them against her opponent. She had plenty of strength in reserve. Though where she planned to use that power, Rudius wasn't sure. It was scary to think about, and Rudius remembered how his future self had been done in by more. I'd be curious there. I'd be really curious right there. The fact that Rudius is pointing this out makes me think there's a purpose for this. I would assume it's because she was two-part, wanting to follow in her father's footsteps, that he did this as well. Or two, it could be the idea of the fairy tale and the Demon King and the fairy tales. But yeah, what is she building all this for? Why does she want all this strength? Why is she building up? Is it simply just this is something that she finds joy in? It's fun fighting things. Keep building up army. I want the strongest army. It's just a goal that she wants. A purpose that she has found. It's just interesting that Rudius himself is even pointing this out now. What is it for? When Rudius came here this time, he kept in mind the possibility that he'd have to fight the guards and prepared accordingly. Roxy had magic scrolls on hand for every contingency, which meant so long as they can hold more off, they could escape. Thinking back on it now, if the guards did join, they would have been in serious trouble.
Mar, bring Rudius down here.
Down below, Edis was face down on the ground with Roxy rushing to her side. She'd lost then. Of course she had. Looks like I better go. If you need to get hold of me, use the contact tablet I set up earlier.
I shall. One last thing, though.
Moore grabbed a box nearby and held it out to Rudius. It was about the size of a dictionary and gray with devilish patterns. The kind of box that cursed you when you opened it. Taking it, it was unexpectedly light.
Lady Etoff told me to give this to you.
What is it?
Should you find yourself in a desperate situation, open it. I'm sure you will find it useful.
Rudius thought, so it's a surprise?
Let's be off, shall we?
Sounds good. Putting the box in his pack, they left the room. What could the box be? It's surprisingly light, which makes me believe that it's probably magic. That it's not an object inside of it. There's no tool or a mass inside of it. That it's simply a magic. I mean, my initial assumption when I first read it was, is it possibly some sort of summoning device? That if he opens it, it will summon Etoff. Like it triggers a summoning circle and she's pulled to him. Maybe it's something that she developed at some point. And again, that would sort of show a bit more into how much she's connecting with Rudius because of that magic armor and her memories of Kalman. Like, this is reminding me of him, and I kind of like this guy. I've acknowledged him, and I want to help him out. Or again, it could just be the idea of repaying the debt. Because he defeated her, she accepted defeat. She is going to repay that debt by helping him out. And that's the way. It's just more of the fact that should you find yourself in a desperate situation, open it. Like, what's the purpose? If you're in a desperate situation, what would resolve a desperate situation? What would be a desperate situation? Probably when he's in danger. There's a threat in front of me, pop open the box. Now, it kind of seems weird to always be carrying around this box, and then when a desperate situation comes up, go, oh, yeah. This almost feels like the teleportation book, the teleportation labyrinth book situation, where it's like, oh, there's this thing. I'm going to put this in my bag, and then at some point, it's going to pop up in his mind, oh, the fix for the situation. But desperate situation means a threat, physical threat probably, violence, and thus how would this help? Two things. Either opening it summons her, or two, opening it maybe encases him into it to protect him. Takes him out of a location. Teleports him away. The assumption I would think is either a teleportation in or teleportation away. It could also be just a very strong barrier magic or physical barrier or something like that could protect him physically. It says that you have to open it, so I assume it's not an automatically activating thing that protects those that have it with them. So, very curious. We'll probably see eventually. I'm gonna probably stick with it's a summoning, which is a very interesting device. If it could, just by opening it, activate a teleportation circle, and that she possibly doesn't have to have something on her end in order for it to activate. Maybe it's like it's been etched on her. Curious. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, It is curious that there's one thing out of that whole list that they did not talk about. Thank you for the details. I have here a request, a search for and exterminate the man god's disciple Geese. They never talked about that one. They never talked about Geese. They talked about Kishirika, said that, yes, we'll give you these letters, you'll take them to everybody. The intelligence network says, no, that's probably not going to work out because everybody's here for Etov, basically. Support against the demon god Laplace, he said, no, because you're probably not going to live that long, and it's only about you. You said it's going to be 80 years out. You're not going to be alive that long, are you? But he says, setting aside the first two for now, I doubt we'll be able to help you with the second two, especially against fighting against Laplace. So putting aside the first two, which is, again, the extermination of the man god disciple Geese and the support against the fight against him, I would assume probably the second one's probably Kishirika. But again, he never goes back to talking about Geese. That's interesting. Very interesting. Maybe it's just kind of a, yeah, we'll do that. Sure. No question. I mean, we're probably not going to do much for searching, but it's there. Yeah. Anyways, good little segment here. Putting the box in his pack, they left the room. After that, Ruiz was shown to his seat next to Etov, and with the best view of the arena. With that best view of the arena, sitting down next to Etov with that best view of the arena, wine flowed freely, and the banquet continued, followed by a ridiculously flashy magic display by Moore and some others. Then came an acrobatic show, like a Chinese circus, and bards singing. Ruiz found it difficult to enjoy any of it. Etov sat next to him the whole time, still naked above the waist. He didn't know where to look, and his celibacy was in danger. He stole a peek, but he hadn't noticed that Eris was nearby. She grabbed his ear, and Roxy plopped on his lap, blocking his view of Etov. It was a great banquet. Good little conclusion there. Really cool stuff. I think, obviously, I've always enjoyed Etov. She's just kind of, she's like Edis, just wants to fight. She's got that great goofy nature. She's always kind of that, it's a comedy relief. I mean, it's just like Kishirika and Bodigadi. I love these Immoral Demon Kings. They're just so freaking fun. They just, again, I think they just see the world differently. They're smart. They want to have fun. They want to enjoy things. They don't care about what humans do. They don't have the same mind process that a lot of humans do because they don't have that mortality constantly in their mind. They're just enjoying life, enjoying things. And again, I'd expect that a lot of them have just seen a lot of stuff. Again, Bodigadi, I think he's just seen stuff. Kishirika has just seen stuff. And so they want to enjoy life as they see fit. They found their own purpose. They want to just seek out or just have no purpose. Just want to have no purpose. That's good too. But she is fun. And again, I think this last chapter right here was like a really cool little expected, eye-opening thing to see that, yes, she does think about this stuff. She does have these things that she's focused on. That Kalman, I think, was a big part of her life. Her father was, yes, again, because she was seeking out to be like him. I think Kalman, too, was a significant thing of her life. I kind of really badly want a story of her first meeting Kalman. That would be a cool little extra chapter. Is just get into their meeting, get full on, not just a gloss over, a full on story. But again, that goes to that goes to everything in this story, this series. Is like I want Refugien to sit down and make like a, I don't know, 2 to 8 volume series on every single character. I mean, if he could do more than that, if he has enough there and he's got things that he wants to dig into, sure. But like just at least 2 to 8 volumes of just digging into every single character. The easy example that I gave really early on is I want a full story of Paul and his time adventuring. His whole life. Do his whole life. It'd be so cool. I know there's that Gaiden thing, but yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah, Etop's great. Really fun little segment here. Really cool stuff. And in the end, I guess we were able to trust more. Again, I think it was for his own benefit. He wasn't doing it to help Rudius. I think he was doing it to help Etov. So in the end, I still think I'm right. I still think that I am right, that don't trust more. But in the end, he's a cool guy. In the end, he is a cool guy. In the end, he is a cool guy. As long as you're working with him, he's a cool guy, is really what it is. But yes, let's get into the final chapter for this Mushoku Monday. And probably my favorite chapter in a long time. Interlude. We got married. I will admit, okay, little inside baseball moment here. Like I said before, the way that I do this whole system is I have the PDF and I copy the chapter and I paste it over into a document. I break it down and I prepare it for the Mushoku Monday recording. And yes, sometimes when I'm copying the chapter to bring it over one by one, sometimes I'll see the next title. And so before I even read the previous chapter, I had a thought in my mind, is it going to result, is the conclusion of this fight with Etov going to be that he has to marry her? Is Rudius going to have to marry Etov? Is that why it says we got married? Like, I mean, there was several ones where I was like, yes, it could be like, you know, because you fought me and you beat me, now you have to marry me. It could be the idea of the princess and the demon king. You're supposed to get married as some of these stories go. It could be maybe she sees the ring on his finger and that's a signification. Maybe it's from Kalman or something like that. And so thus it makes him have to be married to her. There was like a billion different things that kind of popped in my head. But I was curious that we never brought up the ring that entire time. I just thought about that. So yeah, goofy stuff. I guess he's going to keep that for Kishirika then at that point. But yeah, this whole we got married title just had me going down so many rabbit holes. But I'm like, in the end, I'm like, okay. I mean, it's not like Etov's going to like go to his house and live there. But there's a thought of me that just thought maybe possibly he does have to get married to her. And it's just by name only. So now we have Etov Grey Rat. Etov Grey Rat. That's gonna be the title of this video, if I remember. It's gonna be Etov Grey Rat. Anyways, interlude. In the middle of a cluster of 10 or so houses stood a rough fence surrounded by a vegetable garden. In the corner of that garden was a patch of piranha plants. Junior high students crowded around a giant cooking pot. They looked the same as they'd ever been, just like a memory. I wonder if Dad's doing okay. Yeah, I don't know. In the Migard village, it was as though time stood still. 2 months had passed since Rudius convinced Etov to join them. He'd used that time to deliver letters to all the demon kings he trudged from one end of the demon continent to the other, bearing letters from Etov, along with Orsid's recommended offerings. He forged alliances with the sweat of his brow. Well, he did use teleportation circles, but still.
It's like I trudged across all the demon continent. It was such a long journey. It was rough. I teleported too.
But I mean, that's an interesting point, because like it didn't take him like forever to get across the demon continent, but it took some time. And of course, he had to stop to make money and all that kind of stuff as well. So he still had to survive and make coin. But still, across the entire demon continent in 2 months. Went to every demon king. It's crazy. Those teleportation circles are really handy. The demon kings were a diverse bunch. Plundering demon king Baglahagla. My gosh, these names. Plundering demon king Baglahagla. A Gorman who looked like a pig. Face demon king Limbin, who was literally a disembodied face. Like those Moai statues. Demon king Light Samadai, whose whole body constantly shone. Bewitching demon king Pator Sator, whose translucent body was concealed under sheer robes. And so on and so on. A disembodied face? A disembodied face? Like, really? I mean, they did have a slime in a library, so I mean, anything, I guess? Every time he went ready to fight if he had to. These demons were kings, an association of morons, with Etov and Bodigadi at the top. He had no hope in hell that they listened to him, but they turned out unexpectedly easy to talk to. They accepted their presents, grinning like kids on Christmas. Then when he gave them Etov's letter, they went pale at the idea of a champion, before bowing their heads and averting their eyes. One even wet himself as he pled for his life. Again, it's like, I can see the idea of being ready to fight and all this kind of stuff because they're associated with Etov. But Bodigadi? I mean, yeah, technically Bodigadi wanted to duel and whatnot, but still. The vile demon king Quabblecabla did the same. Orsid told Rudius to be particularly careful of him. He was a sphere full of holes, and every hole constantly emitted a smell of vomit. Vile as he was also looking for a fight. Even he bowed down the moment that he said Etov's name, though. Rudius now understood how feared Etov was, and how unusual she was. The demon kings in general seemed like a bunch of easygoing guys doing their own thing. Each listened earnestly at Rudius' requests, and about his search for Kishirika. As for Laplace thing, most said it was far too off for them to promise anything. Demon kings lived for a long time, so they probably didn't think much about the future. Yeah, again, I always like this idea of the difference in mindset from somebody that's longer lived than a human. They also dropped into Rikarisu, currently ruled by Bodigadi. It was a crater that had once been Kishirika's stronghold. Bodigadi wasn't home. Checking with the soldiers, they shrugged and said that he hadn't been back even once. They said that he'd likely wandered off somewhere. Rudius handed over Etov's letter and asked them to look for both Kishirika and Bodigadi. There were only a few Demon King castles left, so they would get through without any problems. That was when Roxy brought up a request. Would it be alright if I stopped in to say hello in my hometown? Don't worry, it won't take long. I'll go by myself, and I'll be back before you know it. No way he was letting her go alone. He went straight back to the house. picked up Lada, as well as Roxy's betrothal gift, before returning to Rikarisu. Reese had a hunch this might happen, so he was ready. 3 days later, their journey came to an end as they arrived at the Midgard village. It was just Reese, Roxy, and Lada. Damn it! I mean, they get into it. They will eventually get into it, and by the way, confirmation, called it. They'll get into it eventually, but it's like, missed opportunity right here, Rudius. You should have brought your mother. You should have brought Zenith. Like, okay, because I know what happens, it's fine. But from Rudius' perspective, in choosing to go there, my brain would have been immediately, let's test this out. Let's bring Zenith. Now, yes, it probably would have taken much longer than 3 days because of that, but still. Edis mutters something about not wanting to get in the way, but did say to pass on her thanks for the sword. Edis had learned tact. It made Rudius want to tear up. Which, by the way, he never brings up the sword. I mean, it could have been brought up during, like, conversations. There's, like, a couple points where it's like, they had, you know, they ate whatever, they had meals, and they were doing whatever. It could have been brought up during there, just not mentioned, but when I finished the chapter, I'm like, you never brought up the sword, dude. When Roxy's mother, Rokari, saw her daughter, she froze. Well, not Roxy specifically. It was more seeing Roxy, her child, and Rudius. The picture of a happily married couple. Yeah, it's going to be quite a shock for her. I mean, there's multiple facets to it. Just one of the idea that them just not really ever expecting Roxy to ever get with somebody. Especially since they do get into a little bit, which I think is really cool. Getting the idea of them almost fearing Roxy ever being with somebody, especially somebody that's not a Midgardian. Especially somebody that's a human is really what it is. A few people in the village stared intensely at Roxy. Reese wondered if they were sending telepathic messages, but Riccardi was different. Her brain had obviously ground to a halt. And she along with it. She stayed completely still for about 5 seconds. I'm home, Mom. Riccardi twitched. Roxy, is this? And this child? My husband and daughter. For a moment, she looked shocked. Then her expression changed to one delight. She turned this way and that way, looking all around her. Almost at once, all the nearby Midgard turned towards them, so she must have talked to them. Maybe she called to Rowan, Roxy's father, telling him Roxy had brought home a man or something. Silence fell. It was uncomfortable. Everyone staring without saying anything. But Reese was Roxy's husband. He couldn't let his embarrassment show. He folded his arms, planted his feet apart, and stuck out his chest. Then, channeling psycho powers. Mom, is Dad around? Yes. I just called him. He's at the elder's house. I'm sure he'll be here soon. Could we please wait inside until then? There's too many people staring, and it's getting to Rudy. Look at the weird pose he's pulling. I thought he was pulling a Edda's pose. He's looking strong. All right, Rudy, let's go in. Rudy grunted his assent and followed her into the house. He could feel his pack getting heavier. Thinking it was the pressure of introducing himself to the in-laws, he'd rather blame it on that than his beloved Roxy's insults for the pose he tried so hard at. Dorgy. This is going right back into, like, Roxy's homecoming chapter, which was easily one of the most, like, heartbreaking little moments of the series ever. And again, like I said several times before, I think the anime nailed it. Like, the anime took that source material, that chapter, and did so much with it. The anime was so much better than the actual chapter. Because when I watched the anime, obviously, first, and then I went back and I read that particular chapter, and I was like, holy crap, the anime was so much better. But yeah, it's just tragic to think about the idea that she's finally come home for the first time in a long time, and everybody's just standing there, and she knows damn well they're trying to talk to her. And again, it doesn't get into it here, but if what they're kind of saying with with how they're kind of expressing how this works is like almost like she's hearing this crackling because that connection's not happening. They're sending this stuff to her, but it's just crackles. It's nothing but crackles. How isolating that has to feel. This has got to be extremely uncomfortable for her to do. It was the same with the homecoming. It's just she probably feels, I'm broken. I'm not a complete Midgard. Like, I am defective, basically. I mean, that's got to be the same feeling that people have that are deaf. It sucks. Thank you for having me. Getting away from prying eyes, Reese thought back to the last time that they were there. They didn't go into this house. Maybe he could get Roxy to show him her old room, and maybe her high school graduation photos. There's none of that. I mean, it's not just the fact that they don't have that. Like he says right here, truthfully, they probably don't have that in this village. It's not just that, but the fact that she probably never went to it. If they had a school, she probably didn't go to it. I wonder if we have any provisions stocked. Don't worry, we won't stay long. But Roxy, my dear, you come all this way. You mustn't just hurry away again. Reese sat down next to the hearth. Roxy promptly joined him. I'm afraid we're very busy, Mum. Oh, While Rikari looked disappointed, Reese figured they could spare 3 to 4 days if she wanted to, but he knew that Roxy didn't care much for her hometown, so a longer stay wasn't on the cards. See, this sucks because I almost felt like she would be a lot more acceptant of this town after what happened last time. During that homecoming chapter, it felt like she had a realization moment of how much Rikari and Rowan loved her. My parents love me. They went through a lot of stuff to communicate with me. They learned the demon tongue, and they taught me the demon tongue just so they can communicate to me. They so badly wanted to support me. And I ran off. And yes, a lot of that had to do with the fact that she always felt isolated. And even, it kind of portrayed that. Even when her parents learned it, they still were communicating in a way in front of her that she could not receive. They walk over, then they sit down next to that fire, and they start talking to each other in their minds. And she feels isolated again. She goes to leave. Like, immediately she turns to go leave. It's happening again. I'm a burden. I'm burning them, but they have to speak with their mouths. I'm burdening them. It sucks that even after that realization and they come to bond in that chapter, she still left there pretty quickly, but I felt like she'd at least be comfortable. But right here, she's already feeling uncomfortable again. No, we're not going to stay long. And it could be legitimately that she knows that Rudius is busy. I just want to drop in here, say hi, all this kind of stuff. But it kind of feels like, no, she just wants to get out there quickly. Anyways, Roxy, this is very sudden. You coming back? And with such a nice man, Rikari, without reserve, slowly looked Rudius over, head to toe. Then she gave a little gasp of realization and bowed. Oh, how rude of me. I'm Rikari, Roxy's mother. It's a pleasure to meet you. She must not have remembered him from 10 years earlier. My name is Rudius Greyrat. I believe we've met once before. Have we really? Yes, around 10 years ago. Rizard brought me here. You're friends with Rizard, Superdia? But the last time that Rizard was here, Rikari put her hands over her mouth as she thought back. Then it seemed to click. Oh, you're the little human that Rizard had with him when he left on his journey? Yes, that was me. Oh, that does take me back. Haven't you grown? It's barely been 10 years, but I suppose humans must become full-fledged adults when they are just as big as you are. Yes, ma'am. I'm doing my best to stand on my own 2 feet, though I have a long way to go. Reese placed his hands on the floor and bowed his head. I'm sorry the announcement comes so late. I have married your daughter. I see. Is she, are you happy with her? I'm very happy with her. Looking over to Roxy, she was bright red. Is Roxy, behaving herself properly as a human bride? There's a lot of tension between humans and demons, isn't there? She isn't causing you any trouble? Not only is she doing very well, but she's also constantly getting me out of trouble. She's the most reliable person in the whole family. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Sylvie fans, uh-oh. Edda's fans, uh-oh. Anyways. Well, that's good. She sounded doubtful when she said that. Roxy jabbed Reese in the side. As he looked at her questioningly, she muttered, too much praise. He wasn't exaggerating. He did rely on her. It's just, you seem like such a fine young man. Are you sure that you're happy with our Roxy? The same question again. Rikari was flustered too. Rudy has 2 other wives. I'm more like his mistress. Oh. I didn't like that. A lot of this feels like a cultural thing. So even if I'm not totally satisfactory, it's not a problem. Reese knew there was nothing unsatisfactory about Roxy, and he never once treated her like a mistress. I see. Still though. Mom, can you stop? You're embarrassing me. Oh yes. I just worry, dear. You always seem so unfriendly and quiet. Not to mention your manners. I'm aware of my weak points, Mom. But look, I'm fulfilling my duties as a wife. I even had a child. Duties sound very businesslike, but he'd still love her, even without a child. He wondered if he should say something. Rudius, is that true? It is. I'll never stop loving Roxy. I swear to whatever god you like. Is that right? She still looked troubled. Maybe showing her through action was better. As he debated grabbing Roxy's butt, she grabbed his wrist. She then squeezed his hand, her fingers warm. Rikari seemed convinced. I suppose it is. Just then, Nada, who was beside Roxy, turned to look outside. There's the first sign right there. There's that first sign right there. I'm so mixed. Okay. On one hand, let's go with possibility number 1, like scenario number 1 here. Rikari is a mother. Parents do this. Parents, in a lot of cases, can be very questioning in situations like this. Are they doing a proper job? Are they fulfilling their roles, especially in a more traditional setting? Is she, as a female, your wife, fulfilling her role as your wife? Is she doing everything properly? And again, this could be majorly a cultural thing. that in the Midgard village, like with Rikari, her role is to fulfill whatever Rowan needs. If he comes home after doing his hunts, she will fulfill every role as a wife. She's the one that's cooking. She's keeping the house tidy. She's making sure there's food on the plate. When he gets home after doing his hunting and everything, putting his life in danger, that's her role. And so she could be pressing on to Rudius. Is Roxy fulfilling these roles? But a lot of that has to be in that area number 2. She's thinking about the Roxy that she knew. She's thinking about the Roxy who was, yes, a little disconnected from everybody around her. She was very closed off. And then she ran off to do adventuring. And then she finally came back for a little bit and then ran off. She's always closed away. So to them, for Rikari, that's the Roxy I remember. I can't see her being a wife. It just doesn't click in my brain because I know what she's always been like. She just doesn't know how Roxy's been now. She doesn't know Roxy the wife. She knows Roxy the daughter. The daughter that was very closed off and very cold. That one could never make a husband happy. That doesn't make any sense. She just doesn't know how Roxy has changed. So it does technically make sense there. I did have one other really crazy theory, and that was the fact that right here this entire time, she's hearing from Lara. Lara's talking, she might be talking to Lara at the same time, and Lara's going, father's barely ever home. What? They're husband and wife, right? Yeah, but Reese is never really ever home. Oh, so does that mean that he's going and doing other things? Like he's not feeling fulfilled by Roxy and he's possibly running off with somebody else. Maybe that's what's popping in her head. But I would assume that it would have acknowledged something here. Like every now and then Rikari looks to Lara. Or every now and then Lara is staring at Rikari or something like that. It was just like a really side theory that I had. But we'll obviously get into what actually happens there. But again, I think this might be a culmination of all those things. Just knowing how Roxy used to be it doesn't click in her brain that she could ever be somebody's wife. She assumed that she'd never get married because she just couldn't fulfill those duties as a wife. It just doesn't work. It doesn't click for her. And a lot of that could just be the idea of her not being old enough in the Midgard years. A lot of things here. And yeah, I also believe the idea that could be just them not really seeing the possibility of a Midgard ever connecting with a human. Demons, to their eyes, their closest establishment of humans is what? Millis. And what does Millis hate? Demons. That's really like a lot of them probably hear, most of their stories they hear from is people coming from Millis or going near Millis and how there's that threat that's always there, that Millis hates us. Yeah. Interesting. Rowan is back. His father-in-law was about to make his entrance, which meant it was time to make introductions again. Rudius plucked up his courage. He'd grovel on his hands and knees if he had to. This is kind of a shocker because, like I made jokes about before, it's like, it almost made it out like this dude didn't want to have anything to do with Rudius. Like that first meeting, he's like, don't call me father. Don't even connect to me. You can't have my Roxy. Introductions went off without a hitch. So it is kind of funny, that idea. It almost feels like a flip here. Like, I would assume that Rokari would be very accepting and Rowan would be very off-puttish, but nope. Introductions went off without a hitch. He reacted just like Rokari and said the same things. Well, Roxy, congratulations. So long as you're happy, that's all that matters. Rowan choked up a bit, squeezing Roxy's hand. So cute. He loves his daughter. Thank you, Dad. Roxy and Rokari were getting teary-eyed as well. Rudius's own emotions welled up. It made him wonder if he could make Roxy happy. What was happiness really? He didn't have the answer, but he'd do his best to make sure their love never faded. Ah, dear, my Roxy, married, and you were always tripping over your own feet and bursting into tears ever since you were little. And now, here you are. Dad, please don't talk like that in front of Rudy. Roxy, when she was a little kid, she was likely adorable. She probably looked more or less the same as she did now. So obviously, she was adorable. Rudius assumed that she'd talk more like a kid back then. If they'd met back then and grown up together, things might have turned out pretty differently. But no matter what kind of relationship they had, Rudius was sure that he would always respect her. That's a curious question mark. The assumption here, I guess, is that he would have to be a Midgard and grown up together with her. I don't know. I can see him trying to reach out to her. If he had the memories of his previous life, he would probably connect with her or whatever through some kind of means of it being like she is this trope type of character, archetype character, emotionless doll character, whatever, and want to bond with her somehow. but would he gain respect from her? The whole reason why he respects her now is that she supported him in so many ways. And again, that initial saving him from being locked in. That would be a very interesting story, though, that if Rudius, when he got reincarnated into this world, he was born into the child of a McGurd. And here, I thought that I'd never meet my grandchild, even after being reproached. Rowan picked up Lada in his arms, looking delighted. Lada, as usual, didn't protest. She just stared at him, wide-eyed, as he smiled at her. Lada, is it? Aren't you a clever girl, already knowing how to say your name? Called it. Called it. I mean, it seemed obvious. It kind of seemed obvious, but yeah, called this one. Called this one. And again, I'm still very curious if she, again, was reading a lot into Roxy's. She just doesn't think that she's sending it, but she's somehow able to receive it. I would be very curious if at some point Roxy could figure that out, that she can communicate to Lada, she just can't receive it. Or possibility that through this whole process, she could eventually learn how to. That's actually very interesting. I wonder if going back, if Rudius could confront Orsted and ask Orsted if he knows some way of fixing that. I doubt it. I mean, that seems very specific. Very specific that there's this kind of disconnection there that Roxy has, and that he would hope, oh yeah, I remember a story about a McGurd that had that same problem. Could be that he's had another timeline where Roxy was able to communicate, like she figured something out, like she fell and bumped her head, or she was exposed to some sort of magic and it fixed it. Either way, I mean, what would it hurt to ask Orsted if he knows some way of fixing that? I think that would make Roxy so happy if she would be able to talk to Lada through that way. And again, that would be like a lot of trauma that Roxy has over not being able to do that resolved. There's a lot, and even in this chapter, similar to Roxy's homecoming, where this is a lot of trauma for her. Huh? Roxy and Rudius were shocked. They hadn't told him Lada's name, and Lada hadn't said anything. As Rudius wondered, Roxy turned to Rowan with amazement. Is our daughter... Can she use telepathy? Eh? Yeah. She still stumbles a bit, but she can get across what she wants just fine. Rudius looked to Roxy. A shocking truth had been exposed. Their daughter was a psychic. Oh, man. And it so sucks that this is like, you'd think this would be a joyous moment, and it's like, it sucks that because of how much trauma Roxy has, this immediately turns into a negative. It sucks. It sucks. Like, you can't just celebrate. Well, it really wasn't that shocking. Roxy couldn't use telepathy, but both her parents could. It probably wasn't down to genetics that Roxy couldn't communicate that way. Didn't you know? No one else in the family is telepathic. Rowan frowned. Are you sure? Lada here says that Grandma talks to her all the time. Called it. Called it. Oh no, it's just, the emotions are coming up. Stop, Andrew. Stop. Sorry, it wells up the idea that Grandma has somebody to talk to. And it's like this whole stuff that's coming up here in a minute, there is almost like a selfish desire there to say almost everything else aside, which I'm going to get into eventually. I want her to stay there because at least somebody can talk to Mom. Mom has somebody to talk to. We have a confirmation here that Mom at least has somebody that she can talk to. It's fine. I knew it. I knew it when she said she just talks her head off. I knew it. It was really the point where she was sitting on Zenith's lap and she's looking up at her. I knew it. I knew they were talking. It just seems so obvious. Her grandmother. Lada's grandmother. So Ricari, really, Rudius? It's a stupid joke. That wasn't right. She meant Zenith. Oh, it clicked for Roxy and Rudius at the same time. This is what the blessed child had talked about. Zenith could read minds, and the Lada in her memories was a chatterbox. Lada was always silent and sullen, but Zenith remembers talking away happily with her, so it had to be telepathy. Lada had been talking with telepathy this whole time. Rudius felt a wave of relief. Roxy didn't seem to be taking it the same way, though. It's interesting, because Rudius right here, he's relieved. She's been trying to talk this way the whole time. That's why she's so quiet. I always felt like there was a problem here, but it's only because this was the way that she was talking. Relief. Good. She's not broken. She's not in trouble. There isn't an issue here. It's just this is the way that she naturally was communicating. Like any Migard, when they are born, they're raising up, they're just naturally starting to talk to each other that way. I'm relieved. Roxy's different. Because Roxy immediately starts to think about her own trauma. Immediately, Roxy's putting herself in her shoes. She's putting herself in Lara's shoes. She's just like me. She's in an environment, I'm keeping her in an environment where she's dealing with the same thing I did, where she can't communicate to anybody because she's disconnected in normal verbal communication. But I would argue, and I'll get into it in a minute, this is a completely different situation. She was frowning at the ground. Rudius could imagine what was going through her mind. Even her daughter was a telepath. This is one of those L moments, Rudius. Why do you hate your family so much? Why do you hate your wives so much to think that petty? Why was she the only one who wasn't? The atmosphere in the room darkened. Why does he always think his family is so petty? Again, I do acknowledge the idea that Rudius always thinks the worst. He assumes the worst in everything. Like, he just kind of immediately thinks probably what he would think. Like, he's just been with his previous life and so many bad encounters that he has that just completely burn into his way of thinking. He always assumes the worst. Always assumes that everybody thinks nasty thoughts like he does. But it's like, you have been with Roxy for so many freaking years, and you still think so badly of her that she's thinking this. It's, ugh. And again, I acknowledge that it's not really him necessarily thinking badly of her. Like he thinks that she's a nasty person, but it's more of an idea of assuming that she would think something as selfish as he would. Assuming that she would think that way. A way that he would probably feel like he would think. I guess that's the best way I can put it. Is she really, okay then? Rudius went over and stroked Lada's head. Lada, it's your papa. Lada didn't smile, just stared at him. What was she saying? She says, I don't understand. Say what? After Rowan translated for him, Rudius was confused, then realized that he was talking in demon tongue. Rudius tried again in human tongue. Lada, it's your papa. She says, I know. So she did know then. Well, he did tell her all the time. Still, her response was a bit cold. And this is a good thing right here. This is at least acknowledgement that she is listening to them, that she is understanding them. She could at least indulge him with a I love you back or something. Lucy used that line just yesterday. But then, telepathy wasn't the same as language. It probably came across differently from how it sounded out loud. Rudius was sure that that was the case, or she'd hardly be able to talk to Zenith. Very interesting point here, and I think I kind of talked about this before. And this idea that it was when I was talking about my theory on Lada understanding what they were talking about with Rudius going to Sharon. My theory back then was, of course, that she was hearing what everybody was talking about, the situation with Sharon, and she was hearing what Roxy was thinking. That Roxy was thinking about this idea that she was afraid about Rudius going there and everything that happened with Pax and all that kind of stuff. And she pushed for Roxy to go. And it really is a case where it's not so much that she needs to understand what they were speaking about, because she was very young. How could she know the language already? How could she know what they were talking about so early in her life? But through telepathy, it could be different. That she could be seeing images that she could actually understand. That makes her able to understand what the conversation is going to be because it's instead in images. That the way they communicate could be through images. It could be through a lot of different things that's not spoken word. When one of them says, I love you, through telepathy, it could just be a symbol of love. A heart floats towards them, basically. When she was thinking about Sharon and Rudius going and his danger and the whole situation with Pax and her regrets with Pax, Lada could just be seeing Roxy sorrowful, an image of Roxy being sorrowful, and an image of failure. An image of failure. Dread. Something. I do like that idea. It's like spoken word versus sign language. Really is what it is. It's pictures instead of letters. Something that could really be more easily understood. Well, that's a relief. I was worried that she had some delays. She's still too little to talk, except inside her head, but she'll start talking out loud soon. Rowan reassured Rudius with a nostalgic smile. He's thinking about his own daughter right here. And that's a very interesting point. When they were teaching her the demon tongue, she would have had to been much older than this. They're getting way too ahead of themselves. Later on, Roxy's going to get way too ahead of herself. Just patience. She's not old enough yet. Just wait. Roxy did it. She can too. He's nostalgically seeing this because he sees Roxy right here. Right now, I bet you both feel like we did when Riccardi had Roxy. How so? When Roxy was born, we thought that because she couldn't speak, she wasn't developing properly. Just like Roxy was the only one in her family who couldn't use telepathy, Lara was the only one in her family who couldn't speak. They were similar in a way, like mother, like daughter. Right now, all Reese felt was relief. Their daughter was growing up just fine. If there was no one at home for her to talk to, that might have been a problem. But it wasn't like that. There was Zenith, who Rudius was certain about. I hate... Stop talking about Zenith. But again, this is where it connects for me. Roxy, you're not the same. This is not the same situation, Roxy. Actually, Lada has more room for communication at your home than here. She has Zenith to talk to with telepathy, and she has everybody else to talk to with spoken word. There was Zenith, who Rias was certain about, and had his suspicions that Leo used some telepathy-like power to talk to Lada as well. Yeah, I was kind of confused that Rias didn't bring that up. Can you ask her about Leo? Is she talking to Leo the same way? Once she started using words, she can communicate with everyone else too. Exactly. She just needs a little longer. Lada looks exactly like Roxy, doesn't she? Rowan laughed good-naturedly. She does, yeah. The spitting image, especially her eyes. Rikari looked like she was enjoying herself too. Rias even felt like Lada looked the same. After that, they returned the money they borrowed 10 times over. Rias presented his gift too. Then they sat down for a meal of giant rock turtle. I knew the moment I read that, I'm like, oh gosh, is he gonna gag? It was the first time that Rias had eaten it in ages, and he made sure to enthuse about how delicious it was while hiding his urge to gag. They had a lovely time. Rias was glad that they had come. That is, until he knows something. Roxy didn't look happy at all. She didn't smile once the whole time. It sucks so bad that she cannot find happiness in that village and with her family. And I don't blame her with how much she's gone through the whole situation. And again, right here, she's just... a new thing is smacking her. Like, she was there and she was... it seemed like she was neutral. Yeah, she's kind of fussing with her mother and everything. But the moment that he brings that up, it's like a smack to her face. I wish this girl could find happiness with her family. Because it's like... Roxy's the only one of their family that has a parent. Rias has Zenith still, of course, but like Sylphie has no parents anymore. Edis has no parents anymore. Roxy's the only one with parents, and it's like I want them to at least be the Grey Rat grandparents alongside Zenith. Like, can we have this three be the grandparents of the family? Can Edis see them as mother and father? Can Sylphie? Not that they really need it. I mean, there could be comfort in that, but I think their cultures are so different. They would be probably very difficult for them to connect, really, is what it is. They end up staying the night in the village. Perhaps in consideration for the fact that they were a married couple, her parents put them in an empty house nearby. The house was still a bit dusty, so they did a little spot cleaning before laying down to sleep. All three of them, side by side. It felt like a scene from a movie where a couple shows up at a hotel with one bed. Nothing could happen, though, with Lada at their side and him being Rias the celibate now. Seeing Roxy lying there, though, her eyes closed, he couldn't help it. The feeling rose up when he started thinking about having a little touch. He also realized as long as she didn't get pregnant, it would be fine. Just blowing off little pent-up urges wouldn't affect anyone's destiny. Roxy wasn't in any danger. Rudy, crap, it was just a passing thought, though. She was right, though. Rias the celibate would never permit such a thing. Are you still awake? Don't pretend to be asleep. Our eyes just met. Rias reluctantly opened his eyes. Roxy lay there, looking at him, her eyes serious. It's about Lada. Lada's breathing told him that she was asleep already. She looked like an angel when she slept, a far cry from her usual expression of defiance. I get a kick out of the cute face. The truth is, I suspect this might be what was happening. Rias knew that she meant Lada possessing the Midgard ability. I didn't say anything until now, but whenever I saw Lada and Zenith looking into each other's eyes, I considered the possibility. Yeah, because she probably seen the same look between each of the Midgards. Her parents. Always looking at each other that way. It never occurred to me at all. Why would it? You've been busy the past few years. Running around everywhere. Oof. Oof. Critical damage. Critical damage. She may as well have said he paid no attention to his children. When put that way, maybe she had a point. Maybe he only paid attention to the sweet side of his children. He didn't help care for them or bring them up. Honestly, he'd taken advantage of Sylphie and Roxy. Don't make that face. I'm not blaming you in the slightest. It was kind of her to say so. It didn't matter how much he apologized or repented. Right now, his hands were full dealing with the man god. he didn't have anything left over for looking after their kids. Roxy gently stroked Lotta's face. I just had this thought. I was born in this village, and for as long as I can remember, I felt like an outsider. Looking back now, it was hard. When I left home, I went to a town where people used words to communicate. It wasn't until I got to know people there, and I started my life as an adventurer, that I really started to feel like I was living in my world. Ugh. And again, it sucks because, again, her parents went out of their way to learn the language and to speak the language and teach the language to her to communicate to her. But that doesn't change the fact that the entire rest of the village, besides maybe the chief and maybe some other people there, I would doubt it, but my assumption is that only the village chief really needs to know, and everybody else probably not. There might be a few people, like squad leaders or whatever, that go out to hunt. Maybe they know so they can communicate to other people they run into, but probably very few of them know how to speak. And so even if her parents are communicating to her, nobody else. That even with just the parents, it's very isolating. It sucks. And she never felt like she was a part of the world until other people can communicate to her. She didn't have that barrier anymore. She couldn't do what everyone else around her could. Life was simple for them, but not for her. When they asked her why she couldn't do things that ought to come natural, she had no answer. All she could do was go on being seen as a useless burden by those around her until she began to believe in herself. Just because everyone else could do it, though, that didn't mean that it came naturally. It turned out that she could make do without it. The sense of freedom Roxy got when Roxy realized that must have been incredible. Yeah. And again, it goes back to, I think the best way to kind of equate this is probably somebody that is deaf and having nobody around them that knows sign language or some way to communicate to them. What if by raising Lotta this way, we end up putting her through that? I was just fine once I left home, but that won't work for her. The Midgard are the only ones with this power. As Roxy looked away from Rudius, he wondered if that might be right. The Midgard clan rarely left this village. Even on the Demon Continent, you hardly ever saw one. They didn't exclude others, but they were reclusive. It was all too possible that one day, Lotta might start to feel like an outsider. I mean, that's the same... Okay, there's multiple things here. Yes, the idea of being a different race was already in their mind. There was the same mindset when it came to, Sylphie and her child. The same mindset is here with Roxy and her child. This idea that they're bringing a child into an area, into the world in an area that there's very few of them there. There's very few elves. There's very few, and especially Midgards. And so yes, she's going to feel isolated. She's going to feel different. She's not going to be like everybody else. The only one that's going to have no problems there is going to be Edis's child. That one's going to fit right in. Yes, there's a lot more in that northern region than a lot of other regions, but still, it's not enough to feel like they're going to be comfortable. But then you're adding on to this the aspect that she communicates through her mind. And there's nobody else there that does that except for Zenith. Again, this is where I think that break is happening, where Roxy is equating herself to her child by saying she's going to deal with the same thing I did. By not having her here and having her at our home, she's going to go through what I did. And that trauma is welling up, and she's seeing her daughter as herself. It's just like me. She's in a place where she can't communicate to anyone. But I argue, again, Zenith is there, and she can still speak. She can still speak. She's got to learn it. Like Rowan said, she's not there yet, but here soon she'll be able to talk. That's why he had that nostalgic look. I remember the day that she started speaking. It'll be the same. Just give it a little time. So this is what I thought. Roxy frowned, like she wasn't sure about what she was about to say. She didn't look at him. What if we left her with my mom and dad for them to look after her? What? I thought it might be better for her to live here amongst the Midgard until she's grown up a bit more. Maybe until she's 10 or 15. After that, she can decide for herself whether to leave the village or remain here. Rudius didn't know what to say. He wanted to keep his sons and daughters as close as possible. That was the obligation you took when you had a child. It was part and parcel to being a responsible parent, even making allowances for the man god. He wanted to bring up Lotta where he could see her, but Roxy had thought this through properly before bringing it up. I don't think she did. Her words weren't rooted in wanting to escape her obligations or give up on raising her child. She saw how hard it was on Lotta, and she hated the idea of making her daughter go through what she had. This sucks. I don't believe she has thought this through. I think this is pure emotion. I think what she is saying right here Because, I mean, it even mentions earlier. Let's be honest here. Earlier it said she frowned like she wasn't sure about what she was about to say. That's confirmation for me. I don't think Roxy right here believes what she's saying. I think what Roxy's saying here is purely based on emotion, on her own experiences. She's doing a what if. She's literally just doing a what if scenario. What if Lara is going through what I'm going through? I can't stand that. This was so hard on me. This was horrible. My life was horrible back here. It hurt me so much. And now it's dredging back up. Lada is just like me, and she's possibly going to experience the pain that I went through, where I felt like I couldn't exist in this group. Nobody could hear me. I can't hear anybody else. I'm isolated. And yes, eventually I was able to communicate to my parents, but I was still isolated to this house. I had no world. I had nobody to communicate to. Everybody's just having fun. Everybody's running around having fun, and they're happy, and I don't know why. I don't know what they're happy about. I don't know what they're talking about. I'm isolated. They look at me. And they're wondering why I'm broken. I don't want Lada to go through that. I can't. What if she's going to have that feeling at our house? What if she's going to go out into the yard, and then some kids are going to walk by and they're going to try to talk to her, and she's not going to be able to talk to them? What if? It's all based on emotion and her own experiences, and she's applying it to her. But again, she's not sure about what she's about to say. She's posing it to Rudius without even... It's a knee-jerk reaction. I think there's a side of her that doesn't believe what she's about to say. Never would consider that. Giving up my child? Giving it up to somebody else? Not having my child at my side? Again, what happened when she was first pregnant? What did she say to Rudius? Part of it's mine. Before, and again, I was contrasting it to Sylphie, where Sylphie thought that Rudius, this is very important to him. I have to give him a child. I need to give him a child. He can take in mistresses if he needs to. He needs a child. He wants a child. This was important to Rudius. It was important to Rudius, who I want to give him everything, that he has a child, so I need to give him a child. It was giving Rudius a child. Where Roxy was different. This is our child. Part of it is mine. Lada is extremely important to her. Not to say that Lucy wasn't important to Sylvie, don't get me wrong there. It's to drive the point that Lada is important to Roxy. She doesn't want to give it up. But here she's considering it just purely through her own trauma. And I think there's a side here where she wants Rudius to say no. Tell me no so I can stop thinking about this. Because I can't help but think about it. It sucks that I have to think about it. Because it's such a nasty thought. That I would be willing to give up my child. Please, Rudius, tell me I'm wrong. Because I can't stop thinking about this. My own trauma is dredging up inside of me. And I can't control it. But still, there is a side of me that would consider the alternative here. That Roxy would just stay in the village. Stay there for 10 years. But then she'd be in danger. And there's the other issue there. Is simply... having Lada there is dangerous because she's exposed. She's exposed to Geese. She's exposed to the man god. She won't have the protections they have at that house. Everything about this, again, is an emotionally driven blurt. It just came out. I shouldn't have said that. Even later on, she says, please ignore that I said that. Forget it. But again, I argue she hasn't fully thought it out because I don't think that she's right here realizing Lada's not you. This is not the same circumstances. She actually has more ability to communicate to more people than just through her mind at her home. There was no way that Lada, with her blue hair and ability to communicate in ways others couldn't, would go through life without experiencing any hardship, and parents can't protect their children from all bad things. There's the key thing. You can try to throw her in a safe zone. This is a safe zone. Let's throw her in the safe zone. She's still going to find problems. No matter what, she's still going to find problems. I don't like it, but if you think it's the right thing, I'll stop before getting the words out. He couldn't decide. Should he put his feelings first or Roxy's proposal? He didn't know what to say, so he simply shut his mouth. The silence stretched on until Roxy spoke up. I'm sorry, Rudy. Let's pretend I never said anything. Please, just forget about it. With that, the day drew to a close. Roxy and Rudius fell asleep, hand in hand. Two things here. I think she heard, I don't like it, but that's enough. I don't like it. I don't like it. Good, that's enough. I can grab onto that. I have an excuse to stop this train of thought. Again, I think she's just trying to find. I think she wants Rudy's right here to say, this isn't right, because I think she knows full well it's not right to do this. I can't let my child get away from me. I have to keep my child with me. It's the right thing to do to keep my child with me. Even if she can't speak, even if there's that issue there, I need to keep her with me. But I like that he stops his own self. Even right here, Rudius, even though he was going to say, if you think it's the right thing, I think he just doesn't want to do it. I don't think he wants to do it. And I don't blame him. Who would want to do that? The Midgar village was quiet. You didn't hear any voices. The villagers all communicated with telepathy, so there was no need for conversation. Some of the children might have said hello to Roxy, but she couldn't hear them. Maybe Lotta could. She could probably hear people over there getting food ready, lovers' quarrels from inside houses, and all the hustle and bustle. Seeing how little things have changed here, it makes you realize how full the last 10 years have been. Or, I suppose, how rushed human lives are. Roxy looked down at her daughter in her arms. Lotta stared back at her with her customary sullen stare. Given another 10 years, this village would likely look the same. Or if it did change, it wouldn't be in ways they could see. Rowan and Rakari both came to the entrance to the village to see them off. They were sad to see them leave. You take care now. I wish you'd stay a bit longer. Mind if I give Lotta another cuddle before you go? Rowan held out his arms. Damn it, this scene. I forgot about this scene. No, I didn't forget about this scene. I just wasn't expecting it already. I wasn't ready. It was probably true grandparents favored their first grandchild in every world. These two looked like they were finished having children of their own. Of course not. Here. Roxy held Lotta out to him, then made a noise of surprise as Lotta grabbed the collar of her robe. Rudius recognized that gesture. Come on, Lotta. Say goodbye to your granny and grandpa. Lotta didn't react. She had all four of her limbs wrapped tight around Roxy like a cicada. Then, without letting go, Lotta turned. Lotta turned to look at Rudius. Her expression was the same as ever, sullen and defiant. Her mouth turned down, her brow furrowed, and she looked ready to burst into tears. It was like she was asking for help. Oh dear. Don't worry about it then. Rowan waved his hand with an awkward smile. She says she doesn't want to leave her mommy. How painful can it be for Roxy to hear that? I was just about to give away my daughter. And then she hears that. Again, it's trauma that Roxy has, and so she's obviously going to make a passing comment like this that's a massive mistake. Again, I don't think she fully thought it through. It was just emotion. It was trauma. Wasn't thinking it fully through. Rudy should know this more than anybody else. Rudy has done a lot of things that are based on his own trauma that he didn't think through. Roxy looked at Lotta in astonishment. Then, seeing her daughter on the verge of tears, her expression changed to anxiety. Lotta broke the silence. No, I want to be with Mommy. The effort it took her was clear in every word. Their daughter, who barely said 2 words till now, was asserting herself for the first time. Ruiz figured Lotta had been listening to them last night. Or maybe she hadn't been listening, but hearing their conversation in her dreams. If so, they made her worry for nothing. Roxy hugged Lotta. Her mouth was tight as she struggled not to cry. It's okay. I'll never leave you. It was just a mistake. It was just a mistake. God, flawed characters are great, right? God, flawed characters are great. Having a character that's willing to say something like that without thinking it thoroughly through, or what kind of ramification would become from it, is great, right? Roxy can make a mistake and say that I kind of am considering this. It's a fleeting thought. It's like I was talking about with the whole situation with Makane. Makane, Too Many Losing Heroines, having this moment where this character is absolutely... They feel like they're a horrible person because they had this thought. They had a thought about stealing somebody away from somebody else. And they feel like a bad person. It's just a thought. The action's the important thing. In the end, Roxy, you weren't giving them up. It was just a thought. But that's enough, I think, especially for a parent who is about to make a decision that they realize could have been a massive mistake about their child. And what terrible feeling that could be inside of somebody. I almost made a massive mistake in giving up my daughter. I almost thought it was going to be the best thing for her to do. The best thing to do for my daughter is this. And here she's saying, no, I want to be with you. Don't leave me, Mom. She's about to give me up. Just like she was talking about, she's about to give me up. Please, no, Mommy, I want to be with you. That picture, though. Picture. Again, like I said, I want to get a print of that so bad. Little Lotta. Again, express. And again, I acknowledge right here how important this is. What he says, who's barely said 2 words. Which is a good point here. She has said something, so she can speak. She's getting there. It's not yet, like Rowan said. Not yet. You'll get there. She'll get there eventually. Just like with Roxy, it took some time. Eventually, she started getting into it. No, I want to be with Mommy. Oh. So funny. We'll get back home and Roxy quits her job because she doesn't want to be with Lotta anymore. I think she's going to be a lot more attentive now with teaching Lotta how to speak. And she probably has been doing it for a while now. But I think she's going to be a lot more attentive of it. And again, I think it's a prime time to go ask Orsted, can we fix that? Is there a way to fix that? Can you think of anything that could possibly fix that? I wonder. Besides getting her stuck in a gym, by the way. I want that. The worry left Lotta's face, and she relaxed. Roxy, when do you think you'll be back? Good question. I think it's once Lotta's grown up some more. So perhaps another 10 years or so. Isn't it always 10 years? Isn't it always 10 years? No, I think most of the time she says like be like 10 or like 40 or like long time, whatever. Gosh, my eyes. All right, dear. You take care of yourself now. Ricari's reply was matter of fact. Ruiz figured 10 years wasn't a long time for her. Nope. With that, they departed the village. Roxy's parents stood at the entrance to the village until they were out of sight. I wish she would connect with them some more. I hate that she doesn't connect with them so much. I hate it. I hate it. People, appreciate what you have. Though the visit had been a bit awkward at times, Ruiz was glad to have met them properly. Edis and Sylvie's parents were all dead. Again, appreciate what you have. Roxy wasn't close to hers, but still, family was family. I mean, that's the sucky thing, too, is because it's like, even with... I understand in cases where people, their parents are abusive, especially. That's an easy one. If parents are abusive, it's hard to appreciate that. It's hard to connect there. And especially if you try to connect, like some people, like where you had abusive parents and they try to connect again later on, hoping that once they're an adult, maybe they can make some sort of connection. They're still abusive. It sucks. But when, again, all signs seem to point that Ricari and Rowan love her so freaking much. Appreciate what you have. Well, Rudy, things are about to get busy again. Yeah. But first, Ruiz had to take care of the tasks in front of him. They set off back to Ricarisu. Ricarisu? Back to Ricarisu? I'm guessing he's hoping that they maybe found something. Because they did leave it with the guards and said to look for them. Maybe coming back, they're looking to get a report from them. Like, they go out and search the capital, whatever. Maybe possibly find them. But yeah, super good chapter. I mean, again, obviously being a massive Roxy fan here, but I think even a non-Roxy fan can appreciate what this kind of is doing. Again, this is a lot to do with trauma and how it affects people. That no matter how you really cut it, Roxy's experience in her hometown was a very, very uncomfortable, very isolating, just something that is just not a good upbringing. And despite the fact that her parents did everything in their power, seemingly to undo that isolation she had, they can't go around and teach everybody and expect all of them to talk to Roxy with, verbally, because this is their hundreds of years this way. Why would they suddenly change for Roxy? It's an expectation you can't really see. So again, throwing that onto her daughter and feeling that she's going to be going through the same thing is an expected thing. She's going to obviously make those parallels. But again, like I said earlier, I love the willingness right here to have Roxy make a near mistake and feel that this is the best way to resolve it and present something that is obviously very kind of in her own mind the best way to fix it, but from an outsider's perspective is going to be obviously something they're not going to want to do. But additionally, I think fully in her own mind, she knew this was probably a mistake. That's why she's presenting it the way she does. That's why she has that feeling of not being sure about what she's about to say. It's all knee-jerk reaction. It's always in that idea of, I don't really know what I'm saying here. I haven't really fully thought it through. I just literally had this thought not even an hour ago. I haven't thought it completely through. I haven't probably thought about all the ramifications that can come from it. I just assume she's dealing with the same thing I am. I don't want her to do that. I love her so much. I don't want her to go through what I did. And I don't want her to have that pain that I went through. Again, it's such good stuff. It's such good stuff. I love it. I love it. But anyhow, that is it. That is it for this Mushoku Monday. I hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys had fun. Hope you guys were well. Hope you guys did good and no bad chatters out there. But yeah, greatly appreciate you guys' support, your kind words, just being here, hitting the like button. Bad babakas that don't hit the like buttons. How dare you not hit the like button? But additionally, greatly appreciate it. Support channel monetarily, Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff means a great deal to me. Thank you so much. But yes, until next Mushoku Monday, which will probably be the last for Volume 22, y'all take care. You're friends with reserved You're friends with reserved Superdia? You're friends with reserved You're friends with reserved Why can't I say that? You're friends of reserved Demon King Light oh my gosh. Semdon Medi. Samadon it's